Hi everyone, it's M.S.G here, and today I'm going to be making a tier list for ranking the Emperor's Children units. This is in response to a couple of other tier lists that I've accumulated my knowledge from. With regards to the Art of War, for example, they do a pretty good tier list. I mean, they hit the mark on some things and miss it on others, but they are far better at 40k than I am. Uh, just a bit of background as to my personal knowledge. I am not claiming to be the most prudent nor knowledgeable player on Emperor's Children. I am currently playing them on the tabletop. I've had about 10 to 15 games with them, and most of the games I have won. Uh, so I feel like I have a semi-decent understanding on how the army performs. I do try to take advice from other players who are far better than me or more experienced, who, for example, give different ways to play the game and offer different strategies for, list building, relic usage, warlord traits, what units to bring, etc. But yeah, just to preface that, again, this is my opinion. I don't really have a concrete understanding of how each unit will rank in future. This is based on the 2nd of January 2023. At the minute, the Emperor's Children, I believe, are tied with the Creations of Bile as the most competitive legion for Chaos Space Marines, which is good. So all those who worship Slanesh are finally being rewarded. The Emperor's Children have always been a relatively strong legion. Even in 8th edition, they've always been pretty powerful, so that doesn't surprise me. Yeah, so there are a few units in this tier list that I do need to mention that are Agents of Chaos. I will not be including Abaddon or Abaddon, or however you want to call it. It's Abaddon, by the way, in this list, because we all know he's S tier. We all know why he's S tier, and we all know why he's probably going to get nerfed in the new data slate that's coming up within the next few months. But yeah, Abaddon's not in this tier list, although if he was, he would be an S tier. We do include other people such as Cypher. We also have neutral lords like Fabius Bile and a regular Chaos Lord, but you can take these with any legion. In addition, I also need to mention that the actual tier list is dedicated specifically for the Emperor's Children. This means that if the unit that I have mentioned is an A tier, it may not necessarily be an A tier with another legion. So, for example, while Forge Fiends and Mauler Fiends they're alright, they're okay-ish in the Emperor's Children, they perform far better in other legions, such as the Iron Warriors. So this is entirely for the Emperor's Children. Again, no other legion, just the Emperor's Children. A brief rundown on the actual Emperor's Children themselves. They are the 3rd Legion out of the Legiones Astartes that fell to Slanesh during the Horus Heresy. Their colour schemes are quite varied. For those who aren't aware, they're usually represented as pink and black, although you can have the original purple and gold trim, which is really nice as well. There are other ways to paint them, but again, this is a tier list based on their rankings, in my opinion, not on the colours. Their strengths, they are just a brief run through. They have a lot of strengths. They can bring Noise Marines as troops, which are these guys here, these wonderful boys. The Noise Marines themselves are an extremely strong unit at the minute, especially given the fact that the amount of Blastmasters you can bring within a specific unit allows a variety of options and a very good shooting, because Chaos Space Marines themselves aren't particularly the best shooting army. However, the Emperor's Children are probably the most shooty army out of every single Chaos Space Marine Legion. They are quite a versatile legion. They have numerous ways to boost pretty much anything. They're good in pretty much every scenario. They're extremely good at shooting for Chaos Space Marines. They are very good in melee. They can do a lot of tricks with the mobility, such as a few stratagems that I'm going to mention. Main one is Honor the Prince, which is, in my opinion, probably their best stratagem. There are very, very good stratagems, though. They pretty much do everything well, which is very fitting with how they are represented in the lore. and they can imitate what a lot of other legions have, but not as well. But they have their own strengths as well individually. They have the Slaanesh keyword, which is automatically locked to the Emperor's Children, very similar to Death Guard with Nurgle and World Eaters with Khorne, and the Thousand Sons have the Tzeentch keyword. Every unit in the army must have it, mainly Demonkin. So there's a reason why this is. It allows extra stratagems in addition to access to be targeted from psychic powers, such as Delightful Agonies, which is one of the best psychic powers in the game, in my opinion. In addition, they also have access to the Mark of Slaanesh, which is something you have to bring on them. For those that do have access to a Mark of Chaos, they have to bring it. It's an extra 15 points to pay, but it means that if the unit starts within an engagement range or the fight phase, on their turn, they get to fight first. And in your opponent's turn, you get to fight first. So, for example, if a unit of Space Marines charges my Noise Marines and they survive, which is entirely likely, unless they're a Blade Guard, but if they run in and they survive, next turn on my opponent's turn, I will be able to fight first because of the Mark of Slaanesh. It's an extremely good one for extremely good mark, and probably the best in my opinion. But you have to bring that. There is a negative to that though, and I will explain that. The Legion trait for the Emperor's Children, while we're here, is known as Flawless Perfection. Flawless Perfection it's as far as Legion traits go for Chaos Space Marines, it's actually pretty good. I find it to be quite useful for one of its rules. The other one is game-breakingly strong, in my opinion. So the Emperor's Children are able to hit every time a model with this trait makes an attack. You can ignore any and all hit roll, weapon skill, and ballistic skill modifiers. This means that anything is hitting on its ballistic skill or better. So, for example, if you are moving with a squad of Noise Marines with Sonic Blasters, which is Assault 3, then you can advance, still shoot on a 3, and if you have a Sorcerer or some kind of Psychic, which puts Prescience on them and gives them that +1 to hit, they are hitting on 2s, which is phenomenal. In melee, this translates over to the Thunderhammer and any other weapon that allows you to usually has -1 to hit when you use it. So, for example, a Power Fist, a Chained Power Fist on the Terminator Lord, Thunderhammer on a Chaos Lord or any other Lord, the Demon Axe on the Demon Prince, anything like that, you ignore it completely. So, the Pesky Eldar, who are -1 to hit most of the time, don't care, you hit them. You completely counter other legions, such as the Alpha Legion, which I think is quite funny, because their Legion trait is if you are beyond a certain distance of inches, you are -1 to hit. But that means the Alpha Legion's Legion trait, depending on how many wounds the model has, I think if it's above 10 wounds, it's 20. If it's below, it's 12 or something. I don't know off the top of my head, but it's pretty good. But the Emperor's Children are just like, nah, mate, you guys are fucked. And they will hit on 3s or 2s usually. So they're very reliable when it comes to throwing out damage, be it ranged or melee. And their secondary effect of the Flawless Perfection Legion trait is each time a model with the trait makes an attack on an unmodified wound roll of a 6, improve the AP characteristic of the attack by 1. So if you're against any Armor of Contempt, you basically ignore it on a 6 up, a 6 in combat on modified 6s, or shooting, which is very good. Now, this will be even better and add a bit more punch to your already hard-hitting units. Excuse me, I have hiccups, unfortunately. I really should have thought about that before I made the tier list. Excuse me, thank you. And improve the AP characteristic. So, for example, Blastmasters are hitting on -3. At the moment, they would be brought down to -2, potentially -1 for Space Marines or any other Armor of Contempt faction in cover. So you're usually wounding them on 4. They have a 4-up save to a -3 AP. They'd be brought to a 4-up if they were in cover, a 5-up if they were out of cover, and if you hit the 6, then you bring them up to they don't get a save without Armor of Contempt, because you'll be hitting AP -4, which is phenomenally good. Their secondary objective is pretty most Chaos Space Marine Chaos Space Marine Legions have really, really bad secondaries, in my opinion. I think that they need a buff, but the Emperor's Children one is pretty. It's okay. It's serviceable at least. It's bang average. So you get 1 victory point at the end of each battle round for each of the following that would apply. You need to control more objective markers than your opponent. More enemy units were destroyed by ranged attacks by Empress Children units from your army than vice versa. So, for example, if they kill 2 squads of, I don't know, Noise Marines in range and you killed 4 in your turn, you get a point for that. More enemy units were destroyed in melee than the Empress Children units were. So, again, the same thing. If you kill 3 in melee and they kill 1 of you in their melee, you get a point. And more characters were destroyed. So it's the same thing. You kill more characters than they do, and they kill less characters than you kill of theirs, you get a point. If all 4 apply at the end of the battle round, score 1 additional victory point at the end of that battle round for a maximum of 5, which is per battle round as well. So you can, if you're very, very aggressive and you kill quite a lot and you're in your opponent's face and doing lots of damage, it rewards an aggressive play, it ties in congruence with how Chaos Space Marines should be played in general. Other than that, there are a few weaknesses that the Empress Children do suffer from. Lackluster secondaries. Again, that's just more of a Chaos Space Marine thing as opposed to a Empress Children one. The Mark Lock, which is, again, like I mentioned previously, the Death Guard and the Thousand Suns are mark locked to their respective gods. The Chaos Space Marine Legions that are undivided have access to all of them and can choose not to take a mark. But with the Empress Children, you will need to bring Mark of Slaanesh, so you expect to be paying 15 points on any model that has access to marks extra, because you do need to bring them, otherwise you won't be allowed to bring them as a unit. In addition, you can't bring any other relics as a result of this. So, for example, the Nurgle Demon Princes or any kind of weird shenanigans with Khorne Legionnaires hitting really hard, any other relics for Undivided or Marks of Chaos or the Gods relics are not able to be used, which is pretty bad. I mean, it's the relics and Warlord traits are pretty useful. For some of them are, especially the Uloka, the Demon Blade, which I believe is the Nurgle relic. I'm not sure off the top of my head. There's quite a lot, but yeah. So you won't be able to bring the Uloka blade on a Lord Discordant, which is very popular at the minute because it hits so bloody hard and is impossible to kill. And the Warlord traits that they have, I'm going to be honest, they're pretty bad. They have excellent stratagems. They're a very strong legion. They're extremely good, but their relics are pretty meh, and the Warlord traits are pretty bad. You will be finding that a lot of the time you will want to take base Chaos Space Marine Warlord traits in an Emperor's Children list. Personally, myself, I agree with this. I think the Empress Children's, look, they're just not good. Like, there's one, for example, where you get a 5-up Feel No Pain, I believe, off the top of my head. Let me just check. Yes, each time a Warlord loses a wound, add 1 to its... No, ignore me. Yeah, just ignore me. You do get some decent ones, like Loathsome Grace is pretty okay. You get 2-inch extra movement, and you can reroll advance and charge rolls, and Glutton for Punishment is just... You get -1 damage and a 5-up Feel No Pain. That's it. It's pretty good if you want to keep someone alive, but other than that, you can't use it on vehicles. So it's on a Demon Prince. There are really good relics, such as the Intoxicating Elixir, which we'll get into. But other than that, they're mostly bad. I'm not going to go into detail because this is not relevant. It's just a brief introduction. Yeah, so anything that the Warlord traits can provide, the stratagems will be able to definitely compensate for. So notable ones that you'll want to take into account, which will obviously be integrated into the tier ranking, so they will be able to access certain stratagems. Certain units will be able to access stratagems that other units will not, such as Honor the Prince, which is my favourite one. They pretty much, yeah, they're just pretty, well, the stratagems are exceptionally good, usually. The warlord traits are bad, and other shooting ones, such as excruciating frequencies, which means that Noise Marines on an unmodified wound roll of a 6 does an addition to mortal wound in addition to the regular damage, up to a maximum of 6. So if you've got a load of Noise Marines with Sonic Blasters and you buff them up and you're hitting on 2s and you're just fishing for 6s, that's a decent amount of mortal wounds coming your way. And in addition to that, if they're within half range, they do get double damage, they get an extra 1 damage, which means they are hitting within 12 inches, 3 shots, hitting on 3s, wounding. It's strength 4 toughness, strength 4 -1 AP, 2 damage within half range. The Blastmaster's even better. That brings it up to 4 damage a shot, and you get 3. So that says pretty much everything. The relics that they have access to, again, they're okay, I guess. They're not bad. The notable one is usually the Intoxicating Elixir, but I do believe that is just base kit Slanesh, as opposed to Emperor's Children. But there's some gimmicky things you can do with, for example, Endless Grin, but you can throw that on a Master of Executions because he hits really hard, and then you can put him up at another point on the map at D3 wounds remaining. But you can't be in outside an engagement range, which is pretty bad. And it just doesn't even work sometimes. It basically gives you a 6-up feel no pain, and if you die on a 3-up, you get to bring him back at D3 wounds, whatever has it on, but it's only infantry. And other than that, it's just not very good. You will probably be bringing other relics. With that said, we'll get into the rankings. So the first model we have at the moment is the Demonic Prince, which is a very, very nice model. If anyone's not already got one, the new model is fantastic. Most Demon Princes at the minute are the older Age of Sigmar ones, which I have about 3. You can't bring them with another Chaos Lord, I believe. I think you can only bring one with a Chaos Lord. It's very similar to Death Guard rules, although I could be wrong on that, so feel free to correct me. Right, so your Demon Prince will start off at a base 120 points, not 135. I'm thinking of the Marcus Lanesh. He's a Psyker, so he has weapon skill, ballistic skill of 2, strength 7, toughness 6, 8 wounds, so he can be protected and have the effects of Lookout Sir, 6 attacks, 10 leadership, and a 3-up save. He has access to the Malefic Talons, which means he gets an extra attack if you bring that with him instead of his other weapons, which is his sword and the axe. The Demonic Axe and Hellforged Sword cost an extra 10 points. This brings him up to 130. However, you will be wanting to bring him with wings, because he gets an extra 4-inch movement, which brings him up to 12-inch movement, which is ridiculously good. And he also gains access to the fly keyword, so he can fly over terrain. He can hit aircraft and not, he can charge aircraft and actually get into fights with them. He can chase after very difficult units that are usually able to run away from him, such as the Eldar bikes, Tau crisis suits, anything that can move out of the area of effect of the Demon Prince. He will be able to reliably get in there and pose a significant threat to them, because nobody wants to be caught in combat with a Demon Prince, and there are many reasons why. So normally it's up to the person's discretion as to whether or not they bring the axe or the sword. Personally, I would recommend the sword because it's +1 strength, -3 AP, and then 3 damage. So this guy hits really hard, which is a pro. So you've got strength 8, -3, 3 damage, 6 attacks. And then you can throw on other stratagems if you need one, such as Cruel Bladesman, which is 2 CP. That'll improve the AP characteristic of his melee attacks by 1, which would bring him up to AP -4, which is going to be, if you really want to delete a unit that has a high save, use that. But again, it's 2 CP. It's a very niche application to use. He is exceptionally good as a Warlord. You can put pretty much any relic on him and any Warlord trait that allows him to fight reasonably well, and he can do quite a lot of damage in combat. He has no range capabilities because he used to, I believe, have a warp bolter, and his new model has one on the wrist, but I'm not sure if you're able to use that as Slaanesh. In addition, he's also got a 4-up save at range because he copies the demon effects that the new Demon Codex brought out. So he has a 4-up invulnerable save against ranged attacks and a 5-up invulnerable save against melee attacks. So he's a lot harder to hit from range because it used to just be a straight 5-up. He's got a reroll 1's aura, which is it's passable, it's alright, and fearsome, which is -1 leadership that are within 6 inches of the Warlord or the Demon Prince. He also has access to Armor of Contempt, so he ignores AP1 naturally, which is fantastic. Although that rule, again, like I mentioned previously, will not be around for long. It will mainly be getting, well, Games Workshop have stated they do plan on getting rid of it, which in my opinion is a good thing. For pretty much any faction other than Death Guard, I don't think that's just getting into a different topic though. He's not a named character, so you can fit him out with any Warlord trait. He's very good chassis for bringing any Warlord traits and relics with, like I mentioned. Flames of Spite in particular sticks out on him. Unholy Fortitude gives him a 5-up feel no pain. However, you can just use Delightful Agonies because he is a caster and he has to bring Slaanesh keywords, so he does have access to it. He can cast one and deny one. So he pretty much, you slap a psychic power on him and it can semi-reliably go off because I believe off the top of my head, Delightful Agony is a 6-up, which is a 50% chance roughly. But again, it's better to have it and use it than not have it when you need it. He can also have Eternal Vendetta, which is pretty good. You can select an enemy unit, and until the end of the battle, while a Legion core or character unit is within 6 inches of the Warlord, each time a model in the Legion makes an attack against that enemy unit, you can reroll the attack's wound roll. In my opinion, reroll wounds is an exceptionally powerful effect. I think it's way too strong on certain setups, and it allows people and units, sorry, not people, units to punch higher than the weight class, simply due to the volume of attacks if they do have them. Main people that benefit from that are the Warp Talons because they have it built into their stats and the weaponry. Other than that, you can have a Gaze of the Gods, which is a Chaos Space Marine one where he has a 4-up invul for everything, and each time he makes an attack, it's considered to be in the Wanton, Slaughter, Destruction, and Massacre. So while we're here, for those who are new to Chaos Space Marines or Emperor's Children, they have access to, which is essentially the spiky, evil version of Space Marine Doctrines. Space Marine Doctrines allow extra AP. Wanton allows extra attacks. So Destruction is heavy, and let me just read it, hold on. Yes, heavy rapid fire grenade weaponry. Any unmodified hit roll of a 6 gets an additional hit. Slaughter is the medium one, which is assault and pistol or melee weapons score an additional hit. Slaughter is the close range one, which is assault, pistol, and melee weapons give extra 6s. Unmodified 6s give extra hits. And Massacre is the same, where extra hits on unmodified 6s for rapid fire, assault, or pistol weapons. So that's very good on Sonic Blaster, Noise Marines, Flamethrowers. Also get an extra 2 shots base kit added onto everything, which means that if they're an assault weapon, which they are, for example on the Lord Discordant or any Terminator models, your flamethrowers will be hitting very, very hard, and that's Let the Galaxy Burn rule, which is baked into the Chaos Space Marine stats as well. But yeah, other than that, you can also have Hatred Incarnate on him, which is another very good Warlord trait to have on a Demon Prince. Which means that each time the Warlord fights, if it made a charge move or performed a heroic intervention in the turn, then until the fight is resolved, add +1 strength and +1 attacks, which is really good. So your strength 9 with a sword, strength 10 with the axe. and you get an extra attack, so you have 7 attacks. 7 attacks, strength 9, -3, 3 damage, which is pretty much going to kill anything that it comes into contact with. And you can reroll hit wounds. Hit rolls, not hit wounds, hit rolls from all attacks, which is, again, you're hitting on 2s anyway, but it's just nice to have that extra insurance. But yeah, Demon Prince, the cons is it's a big model. It does have the Lookout Sir rule, and it is quite pricey. But I do think for any Chaos Space Marine Legion lover like myself, or particularly Emperor's Children, Demon Prince is an exceptionally good choice. I don't think you'd be bringing him in every game because he is very expensive. And I know that the stereotype for Chaos players is that they like to bring very cheap troop choices, which allow them to spend more money or points rather on other, like, for example, fast attack HQs. The main brute force of the army from Chaos Army on average is the HQs. They are some of the best HQs in the game, and the Demon Prince definitely reinforces that stereotype, considering the fact that he is a absolute monster in combat. He's also a psyker, like I mentioned previously, which is good, so he can use his own powers on himself or on other things nearby him. You will always... It's a very, very reliable choice. He does give up points to assassinate, but if you can make him very durable, which is entirely plausible, then it's possible for you to keep him alive, deny your opponent those points, and get some naughty damage in. Again, there are ways to run him at the minute that are... He's a very versatile unit, and I definitely recommend bringing him. A particular relic that I would like to mention in regards to how it's useful on him is the Intoxicating Elixir. So your seasoned players and your more experienced players will already know what this does, but just to reiterate for those who are maybe not as experienced or are just getting into Emperor's Children, it adds D3 attacks to the characteristic of the bearer, so you're potentially getting 9 attacks, and you cannot lose more than 3 wounds in this phase, which is the fight phase. So you can use it once per battle at the start of the fight phase, and then it gives you the effects of D3 extra attacks onto the base profile, and the bearer can't lose more than 3 wounds. Any wounds that would be lost after that point are not lost. So if you're fighting anybody, like for example, I had a bad experience with the Emperor's Champion against the Demon Prince where he nearly killed him. Pop the elixir. Congratulations, you've wounded me like 5 times, which would be 15 damage, but it's now 3. So good luck. And then I turned around and killed him next turn because it was my turn. But yeah, the Intoxicating Elixir is an exceptionally good relic on him, and you can only bring it on a Slanesh model, which conveniently he is. Tharis and Riol the Rapacious are a relic weapon. I think you might be able to bring them on him. I'm not actually sure. Each time the bearer, essentially, if you are, then each time the bearer is selected to fight, it can make extra attacks, but it is a demon weapon, which means that I believe its 6s are mortal wounds. Yeah, so it says here, each time the bearer is selected to fight, roll 2d6. If the result is less than or equal to the bearer's leadership characteristic, it can fight as normal. Otherwise, you must select one of the following. The bearer suffers D3 mortal wounds and they can then fight normally. Until the fight is resolved, the bearer cannot make any attacks with any demon weapons it is equipped with. But you mainly want to bring the Intoxicating Elixir on a Demon Prince because he's an absolute fucking monster. Yeah, with that said, I do think he is extremely strong, and I'd put him in the high A tier, just under S tier. He is so close to being S tier. I am debating with myself as to whether to put him there. In my opinion, he's not bad in any capacity. The weaknesses that he does have are very, very minimal compared to the amount of straight damage you can do with this guy and the amount of threat range he has for a variety of units. High A tier, maybe S tier. Yeah. Just bear with me a second. Let me... So the Dark Apostle is next. Another personal favourite of mine. The Dark Apostle is a nasty priest man. He likes to bonk people on the head with his Crozius, and he sets books on fire. So he is not allowed in his local library. Araman is not a big fan of this guy. He is well known for his love of books, and the Dark Apostle just doesn't like him. He's just not very friendly. Very bad jokes aside, the Dark Apostle is a HQ for the Emperor's Children or for any Legion, but again, he's 95 points, which is very good. That also includes the Dark Disciples that you have to bring with him. 6-inch movement, 2 up weapon skill, 3 up ballistic, strength and toughness 4, 5 wounds, 5 attacks, 3 up save, 10 leadership. He has Armor of Contempt and Let the Galaxy Burn, so he gets extra 6s when he hits, and he gets -1 AP on all incoming attacks. He has an Icon of Corruption, which means he is a 4-up invul. In addition, core units, Demonkin, and Cultists can use this guy's leadership, which is leadership 10, which means he's pretty much auto-passing morale. It's handy. It's about, I'd say, C tier. That if it was to be ranked, it's a C, because it's usually pointless. It's nice to have, but you're not going to miss it if you don't have it. Now, the Dark Disciples, usually the Dark Apostle casts on a 3 for a Prayer of the Dark Gods, which is another ability that is exclusive to Chaos. It is very similar to Oaths of Litany in Space Marines. They cannot deny this. Unless there's some rule that I've completely forgot about, it is impossible for your opponent to stop this from happening. So, on a D6, if you roll a 3 up, the prayer is heard, whichever the one is. He can bring 2. He has to bring 1. He has to bring 1 called Dark Zealotry, but you can choose to bring another one depending on what mark he's got. Obviously, because he's Emperor's Children, he'll have the Slanesh mark, and he will want to bring Blissful Devotion, which is a prayer which means any unit that he targets gets advance and charge, which is phenomenally good. It only works on character units or core units, though, so it can work on Noise Marines, Terminators, Havocs, if you're that risky, maybe. Raptors, again, it works on Raptors. It doesn't work on Warp Talons, unfortunately, but again, you usually deep strike your Warp Talons. It does work on a Lord Discordant. It works on Lucius. A Master of Executions is also a good target for this. But yeah, it's a very, very good one to use, especially on a Demon Prince, which is because of the 12-inch threat range. Same with the Lord Discordant. The amount of threat range, your opponent has got to acknowledge the fact that you can slam that on a model and just be like, right, he is now auto-advancing 6, and he is going to get a 6-inch extra to his charge for an extra CP, and just fucking muller whatever's in front of him. And that is a phenomenally good thing. So your better players will know that you can do that, and thus will play accordingly. It's the threat of it that's the issue. It's not actually using it that is. It's like you have a gun on you. You may not use it, but you've still got a gun on you. That's the threat. They are playing around that threat range, which is what Blissful Devotion adds. He also has access to other very strong prayers, in my opinion. Just while I get those up, the Dark Disciples are pretty much cannon fodder. They are toughness 4, which is a bit strange. Usually they're toughness 3 because they're cultist, but toughness 4. 6 up save. They're nothing remarkable. They're just there. But they do offer bodyguard rules. If the Dark Apostle gets killed by a sniper or some form of assassin, or dies as a result of something, and the Dark Disciples don't die, they will die after the Dark Apostle gets killed, which is, again, it's pretty bad, but at that point the unit's screwed anyway. Yeah. But the main reason why the Dark Disciples are so good, and why a lot of people tended to bring them when they cost money, was because cost 5 points each, was because they added an extra 1 to the prayer roll, so you'd be getting off on a 1, which is phenomenal. So anything that you do allows them to add 1 to your prayer roll, so it goes off on a 2 instead of a 3, which is mega good. But yeah, they're pretty useful to have with you, and you should bring them with you. Obviously, you'd be paying for Marcus Lanesh on the Dark Apostle, so it's 95 points for the unit, so plus 15 would be 110 points for a Dark Apostle and his Dark Disciples. The prayers themselves some of them are pretty situational. The others are ridiculously strong. So, for example, a situational one is Benediction of Darkness or Litany of Despair. So, the Benediction of Darkness means that core character cultist units wholly within, which is very bad, 6 inches of the priest. Each time a ranged attack is made in the unit, it is treated as having the benefits of light cover, which is, it's all right with Armor of Contempt, but because they're removing it, it's just that immediately loses its luster. Litany of Despair, it prevents people from performing actions because you have to target an enemy within 12 inches. And if the result is greater than the leadership characteristic after rolling 3d6, then you can stop them from doing actions, or if they're in the middle of one, it fails, which is pretty good against Black Legion. I've used that once in my entire games, once out of it, and it worked because they could try to despoil your opponent. They tried to despoil your objectives, and obviously, we don't want that. Or they can't use Overwatch or Set to Defend, and is not eligible to fight in the fight phase until after all eligible armies in your army have done so. You can go for the meme Dark Apostle, which is quite funny, which is Omen of Potency, where you get +3 attacks and -2 added onto your AP, so it's -3, 3 extra attacks, 2 damage each, which is it's quite funny. You can have the Battle Priest, which is fun. The good prayers, however, are Solterra Portent, which is core cultists or characters within 6 inches of the priest. Select one. Each time a model makes a unit in the unit makes a melee attack, add 1 to the wound roll. So you get +1 to wound, which is, again, anything that benefits wound rolling, in my opinion, outright just trumps anything else because it's guaranteed damage if you get it through. It's basically Veterans of the Long War for free on a unit, which can be exceptionally good on, for example, Warp Talons if the Dark Apostle's nearby, but it's again 6 inches. On a Demon Prince, because obviously this is in your command phase, what I've seen people do who are way better than me at the game, get a Demon Prince or a Lord Discordant, put their Flames of Spite on him, slap Solterra Portent on him, you've got +1 to wound on a Demon Prince, that's re-rolling all his wounds, and it's just nasty. It's just nasty. It's guaranteed damage. The Illusory Supplication, however, for defensive playstyle, is core character or cultist units within single unit of that variant within 6 inches of the priest. Each time an attack is made against the unit, unmodified hit rolls of 1 and 3 fail automatically, irrespective of any abilities that the weapon or the model have. So, for example, if Space Marines get +1 to hit and they're hitting on 2s, they're not. They're hitting on 4, 5s, and 6. Regardless of whether or not the ballistic skill says it. And the big one is the attack's hit cannot be re-rolled. This applies to both ranged and melee. This is huge in a game where you've got a Lord Discordant or a big chassis, HQ or a vehicle you want to protect. Sorry, you can't use it on vehicles, ignore me. So you can use it on, for example, a big blob of Chosen. You can't use it on Possessed, unfortunately, which sucks because Possessed would be very good for this, but I think it would be a bit too strong. It's just a fantastic ability. It means that elite armies get gimped, but for example, if you're fighting somebody like Guard, it's not that good because the Guard hit on 4s anyway, so it doesn't matter. They're just going to shoot you from a mile away. But again, it's Guard, so they're used to doing that. But again, the Dark Apostle is not an auto-include, in my opinion, although I try to get him in my list wherever I can. The problem is the competition between the HQ slot. HQs in the Chaos Space Marine armies in general are the piece de la resistance of the entire thing. They are just super strong. They're the reason why you bring Chaos Space Marines. With all that said, though, I would recommend he's A tier. I think he is a very strong unit. I don't think he's as strong as a Demon Prince. I think he's one of them things where if you've got him, that's great. If you don't, you will notice it because his absence with the lack of the powers is good. Having undeniable buffs every turn that are semi-reliable. That he's not very good in combat as well, but again, he's a buffing character. And if you're running him the meme build, then he is a combat character. But again, it's a meme build. You're not taking it seriously. Yeah, I think he's A tier. I think he's pretty good. Speaking of not pretty good, however, is the Dark Commune. Dark Commune are just they're directly proportionate with how successful cultists are. At the moment, cultists are not very good. I adore cultists. I think they're fun as hell. They're extremely useful in 8th edition when you just brought a squad of 10 and you just put on an objective for 40 points, but now they cost 5 points a model, and they're not very good. But the Dark Commune are a cultist HQ. Fantastic model range. There are 6 models: the Demagogue, Mind Witch, Iconarch, and the Blessed Blades. They're hitting on 4s most of the time, all weapon skill, ballistic skill 4, strength 4 on the blades, toughness 3 on everyone else, and strength 3 on everyone else. Variety of attacks. They are quite confusing to read. It's a big data sheet, but basically, they auto pass. Sorry, they add 2 leadership to a cultist unit that is within 6. While friendly Empress Children cultists are within 6 inches of the Iconart model, add 2 to the leadership and reroll 1s, which is you're hitting on 4s anyway, and potentially 5s through terrain and or -1s to hit. They do have access to Dark Zealotry, Prayers, and the Dark Gods. They don't have Dark Disciples though, so it goes off on a 3, which is it's okay, but it's 2 up's better than a 3 up. I just don't think they're good. They can be a psychic. They have 1 psychic power. They know Smite and an extra 1 from the Dark Hereticus discipline. They're just not good. I don't see a slot. I don't think you'd bring these in any circumstance in an Empress Children army. I think they're D tier. They're just terrible. They're not as bad as people make out, but I do think, like, if they were very good, I'd bring them because I prefer the whole cultist thing anyway. It's a lot more realistic in terms of the majority of the time the Imperium are fighting something, it's usually a cultist. But, yeah, that is not very good, unfortunately. Next up, we have the Defiler, one of the most awkward models in 40k, in my opinion, because they're so damn finicky. 165 points, 8-inch movement, 3 up weapon skill, strength 8, toughness 7, 14 wounds, 3 up save, and it doesn't have a base because the model obviously is very finicky. It can have access to combi weapons, a combi melter. Its cannon's okay because it's strength 8 -2, 3 damage, and it's blast, but it's heavy d6. It's toughness 7, 14 wounds, which is just a rhino with extra wounds at that point. The melee is okay if you can get into melee, but you can't use any reliable ways to get into melee on him because of the fact that he doesn't have access to stratagems like Honor the Prince, which gives him an extra 6 inches. He can't reroll charges. He's not good at shooting because he will just get targeted and bracketed. He's very awkward to move around on the table as well. Any upgrades that you do want to bring on him, like the las cannons, cost an extra 20 points, so he's nearly 200 points. Roughly, you will be paying about between 175 to 190 points if you do manage to bring him. Although he does cost 165, which is, again, he's just not good. He's really bad. Yeah, he heals a unit. Heals himself 1 lost wound a turn, but he's really bad. He's really bad. Okay. So the next one are the Legionnaires. Empress Children Legionnaires are different to Noise Marines. Legionnaires are usually the base troop for most Chaos Legions. These guys cost 18 points a model. Basic standard stuff for Space Marine loadout: 3 up weapon skill, ballistic skill, strength, toughness 4, 2 wounds, 3 attacks. Again, extra attack because the Chaos, and the Sergeant gets 4. The champion, quote unquote, gets 4. They have access to chainswords, a demon blade, which is okay, but you can only put that on the champion, and a heavy chain axe, which is strength +4, -4, 2 damage, but you get -1 to hit. Luckily, you ignore that because of the Legion trait. You're hitting on 3s anyway. Yeah, these guys. You can also bring them as a site. You can also bring a Balefire Tome for an extra 20, so you can bring up to. You can get a Psyker, which gets, I think it's 1 power from the Dark Hereticus. Yeah, 1 power. So you've got loads of mini Psykers, which is good for Warp Ritual. It's mainly from the A unit with a Balefire Tome, so you have to put him up front to get more range out of it. It's just the more you bring, the more powerful they get. But inadvertently, the easier it is for them to kill, considering that the blast weapons are a thing, and a toughness 4, 2 damage. 2 wounds is there's so much damage too in this game. But Legionnaires are, in my opinion, really fun. They're extremely fun. Having a pocket psych is good, so you don't have to bring a sorcerer. I have played a few games with them. They have been very, very swingy. They've either been amazing or they've been just, why did I bring them? But they're more of a, if you want, you can bring a squad of 5 and sit them on the back objective, but they don't have good shooting because Noise Marines are better at shooting, even though they're more expensive. A squad of 5 would cost you 60 points. If you're bringing in with a heavy chain axe, it's 70. Psyker is an extra 20, so that's 90, and it's a Marcus Lanesh, so 105 points for a squad of 5, that's pretty bad. That's roughly the same cost as a Noise Marine squad. Yeah, they're all right, I guess. I wouldn't bring them unless you're doing a casual game. Competitively, no point. C tier. They're not trash because obviously the psychic powers are a thing, and you get delightful agonies which you can spam, which is pretty fun. They're just all right. They're okay. Nothing remarkable. Next up is Fabius Bile. Fabius Bile also has access to his own faction, which is, again, like I mentioned at the start of this video, it is one of the best in the game, if not the best, depending on who you ask, between them and the Emperor's Children. Fabius Bile's faction has the Creations of Bile. They have an access to the Legion trait, which allows them to fight on death, which is fucking broken, in my opinion, because possessed fighting on death when they've not been hit is just ridiculously good. We also have access to that stratagem, which I believe is Death Ecstasy, but it's 2 CP. So again, Empress Children shenaniganery wins again. Bile is 90 points. He's 2 up weapon skill, ballistic skill, strength 5, toughness 4, 6 wounds, 6 attacks, 3 up save. I'll be honest, no, he's trash. I'll give a brief reason as to why. I am going to try and speed this up, but basically, he is an agent of chaos, I believe. Let me just get it. Yep, an agent of chaos, so you don't lose any Legion trait if you do bring him, which is okay, I guess. But this is the caveat, and I am probably wrong, but I would recommend. I don't know if I am wrong or not, so take this with a pinch of salt. He has an ability to buff Traitorous Astartes core infantry, which would be Terminators, Legionnaires, Noise Marines, Chosen, Raptors, and Havocs that are within 3 inches of Bile. But this is the kicker, which does not have the Mark of Chaos keyword or an enhancement already. Everything in the Emperor's Children has to bring the Mark of Slanesh. So his Enhanced Warrior's ability, which means they either get +1 strength, +1 toughness, or +1 attack, is useless. You cannot use it on Emperor's Children models, to my knowledge, because they do have Marks of Chaos, and you have to bring them as Emperor's Children. So he's trash. He literally is useless. He doesn't do anything. He has a 5 up feel no pain and can regain D3 lost wounds a turn. He's got an an acolyte next to him, which is just terrible. Don't bring him. He doesn't do anything. He's a 90-point beat stick, and he doesn't beat anything other than his own meat, evidently, because, Slanesh, haha, badumch. Terrible jokes aside, please don't bring him. He's not very good. He's not even really good in any Chaos Legion. He's not even his own Chaos Legion. He's really bad, which is weird considering he's got his own faction. But next up is the Forge Fiend. This thing is 110 points base kit, but you do need to bring either ectoplasma cannons or auto cannons, which are either an extra 30 points for the ectoplasma cannon or an extra 50 points for the auto cannon. 3 up weapon skill, 3 up ballistic skill, strength 6, toughness 7, 12 wounds, 5 attacks, 3 up save. The problem with vehicle is more of a vehicle problem from a game design. Vehicles in 9th edition are essentially glorified punching bags. a majority of the time. They don't do enough damage to reliably get anything off unless it's the first turn, you get lucky, and they're in range. It's just, they're not good. And it sucks because the Forge Fiend models and everything, the tanks, they look so goddamn cool, but they're just not good. Toughness 7 chassis at 12 wounds is just, you're asking to get popped. It's just a Rhino with 2 extra wounds. It doesn't do anything. Again, the cannons, the ectoplasma cannons, which are an extra 30 points for 2. Heavy D3, very swingy. Strength 7, minus 3 AP, 3 damage is blast. They're just not good. And it sucks because these are a really, really cool looking model. But unfortunately, they are better in Iron Warriors from what I have heard. I have a friend who's devoutly obsessed with the Iron Warriors and he says they're very good. But again, just too easily bracketed. You can easily knock off at least half of his bracket within a single turn of shooting or melee because his strengths, he's only toughness 7. So strength 8 weapons or strength 9 weapons, which are usually wounding tanks on 3s, you wounded him on a 3, and it's just 7 damage, and he's already hitting on 4s for a demon engine, which is very bad. You can use Demon Forge on him, but for 1 CP, it's just not worth it, which means he hits on 2s if he's not fully bracketed. But spending a CP to make a unit have so-so shooting is just not good. They're just not good. Yeah, the extra 6s are pretty nice if you get it on the first turn with a wanton destruction. It's nice, but unless you're rolling big 6s, anything that relies you to roll a ridiculous amount of... just bear with me, I'm going to get rid of this advert. Hold on, because it's doing my head in. But yeah, anything that has any kind of, you have to use 6s, otherwise it's going to be good, that applies to literally anything. So there's no point. So yeah, he's not very good. Havocs are next. They are a heavy support slot. They are minimum 125 points for the entire unit. That includes 5 Havocs, 1 champion. Strength 4, toughness 5, 2 wounds, 3 attacks, 4 on the sergeant. They are 6-inch movement, 3 up weapon skill and ballistic skill. These guys in 8th edition were very good. I used to have a lot of success with them, but now they're just trash. They're very bad, especially on Emperor's Children, and here's why. So you can bring ironically, the guy who's the leader of the squad isn't the shooting guy. He's the close quarters guy. So yeah, you can bring him with stuff, but you're paying extra for essentially 125 points minimum for a bunch of guys who are going to sit on the back of the map and maybe move up to the mid objective if you've got that cover. They're just very weird. You can play them aggressively. I have seen people do that, but you mainly bringing them for the las cannons. You want a squad of las cannons. So you get 4 shots, an extra 20 points gives you a heavy 1, strength 9 minus 3d6. You can use a stratagem on them, which I believe is... I forgot off the top of my head. I think it's... Just let me have a look. It basically means you get an automatic 6 to wound, it's extremely good. But again, you're spending CP. You shouldn't be spending CP. Yeah, murderous perfection. You can use it on these guys, which means you can change the result of a hit roll, wound roll, or damage roll to be a 6. So if you need an extra last cannon shot, I've rolled 3 6s before on last cannons out of the 4, and I got 7 shots, strength 9 minus 3d6, which is, it shredded it, whatever I shot at. I think it was a Predator. It shredded it, but again, it's pure fluke. The look based. They can output some decent shooting if you bring them with auto cannons. If you want to shred hordes with them, you can do. You can bring them with, I think it's the chain cannon. I think it's called the chain cannon. Yeah, Reaper chain cannon. You can bring them on So it's heavy 8, 24-inch range, heavy 8, exploding 6s on the first turn. Minus 1 damage, strength 5. So you're pretty much shredding guardsmen and any other thing. That's pretty good. If you've got a dedicated anti-horde unit for 125 points that can throw out 32 shots, because it's heavy 8 per unit, which would be 16 times 2, which is 32. 32 shots, heavy. That is probably the best, because it's strength 5 fire, minus 1 AP, 1 damage. So it's pretty good against Death Guard, because the minus 2, they don't ignore the minus 1, because you can't ignore minus 1 if the damage is already 1. They're probably, I'm probably singing the praises a lot here. Oh, sorry, they are 140 points minimum, because you bring the Marcus Larnesh on them. That is expensive. I'd say they're not outright useless. I've yet to use a game where I've brought all heavy chain cannons and tried it, because I can imagine it's due to the amount of dice and the amount of you're running up with your 6-inch movement, you're spraying anything that's closest to you, you automatically getting extra hits on 6s. You're getting at least 40 shots off on average, which is strength 5 minus 1 damage, but some of them are going to go through. Or you can bring up the last cannons and just shoot them. They also have an ability which is completely useless with Emperor's Children. Models in the unit that do not suffer the penalty to hit rolls incurred for firing heavy weapons the same turn the unit's moved, so it's pointless. You already do that anyway. The extra AP is nice on a wound roll of 6, though. So minus 4 AP, minus 2 AP on your auto cannons. If you've got them, auto cannons are pretty useful now. Chain cannons again, volume of shots. I think they're a C tier. I think I'm maybe this is based on the fact that the chain cannons are a thing, but I think they are extremely, extremely average. The dedicated shooting unit, that ability that we have, counters it. It nullifies it. Sorry, it doesn't counter it. We already have the Legion trait. That's the big problem. That, and most of their weapons are heavy, which doesn't matter, but it means they're only useful in the first turn and they get the max efficiency off. The champion can bring a flamer, which is good for Overwatch, but it's just a regular flamer that you pay an extra 5 points for. It's just, they're all right. That and the heavy chain cannons, the Reaper chain cannons are 5 points a model, so you're paying an extra 20 points for that. So that'd be a minimum of 160 points for a squad of 5, which, yeah, so they're about C tier. I think the Legionnaires outbeat them a bit because of the psychic powers, and that's literally it. Speaking of terrible units, Hellbrutes are next. They're an elite choice. They are the nasty cousins of the Dreadnought. Their main shtick is the fact that they can have gimmicky stuff that you can do to them, which allows them to get off some strange shooting. So, for example, they have a rule which means that each time your model makes an attack, if it has 7 or fewer wounds remaining, you can re-roll wound rolls of 1. It's 8 wounds anyway, so if you already hit it, minus 1 damage, armor of contempt. So it's toughness 7, 8 wounds, and you don't mean you can target it. It's okay. It can take a few punches, but other than that, it's no. 105 points, base kit. It says it comes with a missile launcher and twin heavy bolters. You can switch them out for plasma cannons, which is usually what most people do, or the fists, or the power scourge. Most people don't use the hammer because of the minus 1 to hit, but with the Emperor's Children, I think the Hellbrute ignores it technically because it's still got the Legion trait. But again, it's hitting on 3s, and it doesn't have access to Honor the Prince. Oh, it does have access to Honor the Prince, actually. Ignore me. Because it's a core unit. So you can have some potential meme strategies with a Hellbrute if you want to run in and punch stuff with a sledgehammer, I suppose. 105 points is Strength times 2, so your strength 12 minus 4 d6 damage, though that's a problem. You can use his fists, which are more reliable, which is strength 16. Strength times 2, which is strength 12 minus 3 damage. And if you've got both fists, it means you can make an extra attack, which is a lot of damage. But again, Hellbrutes are just weird. They're just a very weird unit. I don't rate them at all. I think they're pretty meh. I'd say they're either high D tier or low C tier. The plasma cannons are nice. D3 shots, heavy, so you still hitting on 3s. They get blast. An unmodified wound roll of 1. A hit roll of 1 wounds the the Hellbrute, and he suffers a mortal wound. So what some people do is they will intentionally roll a 1, take the 1, and then, because they're under 7, the rest of the shots that they get to re-roll 1s to wound. It's a very fickle strategy, because if you're rolling hot, then you can potentially roll heavy D3, so it's 2. I think it's 2. You can bring 2. Yeah, so you can bring 2. So heavy D3, so that's potentially 6 shots plus an extra 1 or 2. Strength 8 minus 3 damage. Blast as well for hordes. It's weird. It sounds better on paper than it does in the game, but from what I've seen, people say the Hellbrutes are really bad. But from what I've said here, I would probably... The fact that it has access to Honor the Prince is concerningly funny. But yeah, it's meh. I think Havocs are better, because obviously the Havoc is able to hide in cover. The Hellbrutes can't, I don't think. But other than that, that's the way it is. Let me just check a few things. Yeah, so you can bring last cannons on it, 2 shots, but it's plus 20 points. Just not really good. So yeah, CC's about it. Low C tier seems okay. Havoc's a mid C tier, by the way, and Legionnaires are middle C tier as well. They're bang in the middle. Helldrake. I have a few of these guys, and I have one for Emperor's Children. One of them was it was a completely random casual game. I didn't have enough points, so I figured I'd bring a Helldrake, and it turns out the opponent that I was fighting against brought a lot of aircraft. So those who have used Helldrakes will understand that is extremely useful. So the Helldrake, we'll run through the data sheet first. 165 points, 20 to 60-inch movement, can be bracketed, so we'll just go off its top bracket. Weapons skill, ballistic skill 3, strength and toughness 7, 12 wounds, 5 attacks, 3 up save. It's a very big model, and it's very awkward to move around, but it's a flyer. So that means it's -1 to hit if you don't use hover jet. In addition, it has access to the Bale Flamer, which is Assault 2d3, but then you get an automatic +2 added on to that because of the Let the Galaxy Burn rule. So the Flame is nice. Strength 6 -2, 2 damage. Extra hits in Massacre and Slaughter, which is always good. Flamers are always super strong on Chaos Space Marines in general. Yeah, the autocannon's terrible though, so you don't want to use that. That's 36-inch range, 4 shots, strength 8, -2, 2 damage. Claws you have to bring that anyway. So strength user, -2, 2 damage. But each time it makes an attack against an aircraft model, it does 4 damage. So pretty much this is the anti-aircraft aircraft. This thing will fucking shred other aircraft. But the problem is each time you declare a charge with this model, you can only select aircraft units as the targets of that charge. This model can be chosen as the target of a charge if the unit making the charge can fly. So, for example, a crisis suit could charge into this thing. A demon prince could charge into this thing. You can only fight with this model if it is within engagement range of any enemy melee units that can fly, and this model can only make melee attacks against units that can fly. So you can't charge anything unless it's got aircraft in it, but you can get charged by other units that have fly. it doesn't have the fight first ability, unfortunately. You can change it to hover jet, which means in your command phase the model can hover. If it does, then you have to start your next command phase. Then at the start of until the start of your next command phase, the move characteristics 20 inches. But it loses airborne predator, which means it can attack on the ground now, so it's actually pretty useful. In combat, especially, it's mainly an anti-aircraft thing. In combat, it's 5 attacks hitting potentially on 3s, no rerolls. It's just supersonic as well. Each time this model makes a normal move, advances or falls back, first pivot on the spot up to 90 degrees, and then move it straight forward. So you basically constantly have to keep it moving around the board. Where it can harass and it can start, a few problem units if you want to focus fire at the start of the game. 2d3 plus 2 shot, strength 6 minus 2 damage are pretty useful. If it attacks any other flying units, though, it gets +1 to hit. So you're mostly auto hitting with the flamer, and then you're hitting 2s against stuff that can fight it, unless you are hovering and you run into another unit that doesn't have fly. So you can fly it up the board, put it in hover mode, 20-inch move, run bang next to an enemy unit if it's not infantry. That you can attack because it's infantry now. It's not infantry, sorry. You can attack any unit whilst you're there, but you also lose -1 to hit on yourself, so you are now being hit on whatever the ballistic skill is. It's just very gimmicky. Against aircraft, if someone brings an aircraft, which isn't competitively, it's unlikely that they will bring that. I'm going to put them in C tier. I think they're not bad. I think Helldrakes need a bit more love. I love Helldrakes. Contrary to what I've been saying, Helldrakes are one of my favourite models because they look so goddamn cool. And the fact, like the idea of flying around the battlefield, spraying fire like a dragon, just killing anything that it comes into contact with, it's nice. And the fact that they're 165 points is kind of... it's just that their attacks are very swingy. 5 attacks for this model is not enough. And it's basically extremely anti-aircraft, very meh when it comes to dealing with it because with other units, because it's toughness 7, 12 wounds, which is again a rhino with 2 extra wounds. So C tier feels like a good spot. Plus, if someone charges it, you can pop Overwatch and get the flamer shots off for free. So that is a good deterrent. So maybe I'm underselling it, but I just think, at least in my opinion, that the Helldrake doesn't provide enough reliable damage output or utility. It's fun to use every once in a while, but I wouldn't bring it every game. So, if you look at the tier list, you'll notice that there's 2 Leviathan Dreadnoughts. That was not a glitch. I have decided to rank the ranged and the melee differently because they are wildly different. So the Leviathan Dreadnought, I will not be ranking the Contempt Dreadnought, even though it does have the core keyword. I haven't played with the Contempt Dreadnought. I'm only ranking units other than a few HQ units that I have played with. I haven't played with Cypher. I haven't played with the Vindictor tank. I have played with everything else on here, though. Other than Fabius Bile. But other than that, yeah. So, Chaos Leviathan Dreadnought, they are Martial Legacy, which automatically means that you have to pay a CP. Bear with me a second. Yep. So you have to pay a CP to include them in your list, which is not very good, especially in Nephilim at the minute, where the command points are very scarce. You are operating on a movement 8 of 8 inches, weapon skill ballistic skill 3, toughness and strength 7, 14 wounds, 4 attacks, 2 up save, and a 4 up leadership. The melee version is what we're going to rank first, and then we will do the ranged version. So, again, 220 points for a Dreadnought, very expensive. So you're going to put a lot of points into this guy. He has the base loadout with them usually is the 2 heavy flamers and 2 Graflux bombards, but obviously because it's melee, we're just going to focus on the melee attacks and the quote-unquote sponson weapons. It's under his armor, just under his arms, on around his chest area, which is where they are. So he has access to twin Volkite calivers, which are 30-inch range, heavy 4, strength 5, no AP, 2 damage, but 6 unmodified 6 as a mortal wounds, which is nice. Mortal wounds are always, useful. The flamer is usually the go-to though, because it's a heavy flamer, which means it's 12-inch range. Heavy D6, but you automatically get an extra 2 shots because they let the galaxy burn. Strength 5 minus 1 AP and 1 damage each. But because there's 2 of them, so it's heavy D6 plus 2 times 2. So it would be a minimum of 3 shots per one, so you're getting a minimum of 6. So it's very good for Horde. You normally, if you're running the melee, you want to run the flamers because obviously you'll be getting close up. You can counter anybody that's charging into you. If they want to heroically intervene, you can shoot them, I believe, with the flamethrowers. And as we've learned, flamers are pretty strong at the minute, especially in Tzeentch, but flamers are very strong anti-stay away from me weapons. They're extremely, extremely useful. Calivers, again, they're very good. They don't cost any points either. The heavy flamers don't as well. It just depends on what you want. Do you prefer mortal wounds or reliable anti-overwatch or horde dealing capabilities? However, the melee on the Dreadnought is, I'm not impressed, to say the least. So you have access between either 2 claws or 2 drills. I believe I have mine for the claw and the drill. I don't think you can get 2 drills. I'm not sure. I assume you can get 2 of each weapon because they are very customizable. However, the problem lies in the fact that it's strength times 2, which is strength 14, which is, that's all right, yeah. You wounded toughness 8 on and toughness 9 vehicles on 3s. Minus 3 AP, so you're bringing most things up to a 5 up or a 6 up, depending on what you're hitting, and 3 damage, and you get an extra attack, so you get 5 attacks instead. Again, 4 attacks, though. That's the problem. You don't have that many attacks, but they hit very hard. The better one, in my opinion, is the Siege Drill. So the drill is strength times 2. It's minus 4 AP, so you're bringing most things up to their invul save or a 6 up save. Most will try and use their invul though. Against tanks, it just shreds them. It's 2d3 damage, so it would be semi okay against whatever you're punching. However, if you hit a vehicle, it's a flat 6 damage, which means that vehicle is going down if you hit it. The problem lies in the fact that it has access to virtually no stratagems. It's got access, according to this, it has access to Death to the False Emperor, which is only good against Heretic Astartes. Against Adeptus Astartes and Sanctic Astartes, which is Grey Knights. And it has access to Cruel Bladesman, which means you get an extra AP on your melee attacks, which again, it's just 2 CP for that. You're already paying a CP to bring the guy, he doesn't need even more. He is pretty bad because he's easy to bracket, because obviously if you bring him down to 7 wounds from 14 on a strength toughness 7 chassis, easy. The 2 up saves are alright. He does get minus 1 damage. He does have a 5 up invulnerable save as well, but most demon ninjas do. And he does explode on a 6 and it's D3 mortal wounds. I would say he's not fast. He's just not fast. At least the Hellbrute can shoot, but the Helldrake's got more map control. I'll be honest, I think he's really bad. I think he's 210 plus points. 220 points. You don't have to bring a map because he already has the Slaanesh keyword. In fact, he doesn't even have the Slaanesh keyword. He has the Emperor's Children keyword. He's D tier. He's just not good. I don't see any use for him. However, his cousin, or brother, depending on what your perspective is, the Ranged Leviathan Dreadnought, exact same stats and everything like that. However, he does get access to... again, you can mix and match Leviathan Dreadnoughts. While I'm here, I just need to mention that you can mix and match. You can have a melee option, you can have a ranged option. But the way I see it, much like humanity in general, it's best if you specialise. So, for example, if you have a melee weapon and a ranged weapon, it's all right, but you want to have that ability to either maximize your shooting output or maximize your melee output. I don't see the point in mix and matching unless there's a very strong case for another unit to mech it. But Leviathan Dreadnoughts, in my opinion, aren't that one. In addition, the Graflux Bombard doesn't cost anything. It's 24-inch range, 2d3 shots, strength 8, -3, 2 damage. It is blast, which is good. That's an extra bit of punch for horde units. Now, here's the strange little rule it's got. Each time an attack made with this weapon is allocated to a model with a save characteristic of a 3 up or better, it has 3 damage instead of 2. Which, in my opinion, that's great. That's an elite killer. You're wounding Space Marines on 2s. You're wounding Custodians on 3s. You're wounding tanks on 4s. But, again, you're paying a CP to bring this guy. So he hits very hard in ranged. So he has access to the calivers. I usually run him with a caliver because it's 30-inch range. Heavy 4, strength 5. It's good for just dealing mortal wounds to a target that you need to soften up if you've got a character that's nearby. So, like, for example, if you want to cripple a unit, so then another unit that you've got nearby can charge into it, kill it, and then use that extra piling to consolidate forward and move closer to the objective or something, then it's useful. But again, usually when you go in for a unit, you're trying to kill it as opposed to maiming it. That being said, you can also pay 20 points for the Cyclonic Melter Lance, which is 18-inch, heavy D6, strength 9, -4, D6 damage. But if it's within half range, it's D6 plus 2. It's just a melter on crack, basically, which, again, D6, so it's either really bad or this thing hits like a truck and melts anything that's next to it. Personally, I would not pay 20 points for it, though. You can also bring Hellforge missiles, Hunter Killers. You can bring 5 points. You can bring 3, but you can pay 5. You pay 5 points for each one. So that's a 235 point model. If you just bring in Graflux Bombards, which is something that I definitely recommend that you do. Yeah. Again, strength 10, -2, D6 damage. It's one shot, so you're paying 5 points per shot. It's just gimmicky. I wouldn't bring it. It just adds on to the price of a unit that's already, in my opinion, very pricey. Other than that, you can bring a Storm Cannon, I guess, which is an extra 10 points, 36-inch range, heavy 8, strength 7, -1, 2 damage. No. The AP is not high enough. If it were AP 2, maybe, but if it were, Space Marines are getting a 3-up save against that. But in my opinion, I think the Leviathan Dreadnought with Graflux Bombards, Twin Volkite Calivers, or Flamers, depending on which one you want, in case you want Flamers for insurance, in case something deep strikes you and wants to charge you. You do get extra hits on sixes in the Doctrine as well. I'm not sure if Chaos Dreadnoughts do get that, so someone's going to have to let me know. I would assume they do, because it's just Emperor's Children. So you're doing a lot of damage, and it's -4 if you wound on a Graflux Bombard on a 6. It's just really good. I think these are if you've got the points and you've got everything else that you think you need, bring them. However, most people will say just bring another squad of Noise Marines because of the variety. However, in my opinion, from the amount of damage output that I've used 2 Graflux Bombards with Twin Volkite Calivers on Leviathan against Votann, and against Votann, which is important. The guy couldn't shoot my guy because he was behind cover, but I could shoot him because weird line of sight. I could shoot his other models, and he absolutely shredded him. But he will get popped because he's only toughness 7, 14 wounds. I think he's worse than the Legionnaires, better than the Havocs, in my opinion. But he's also, ironically, the damage output you get for him, I don't know. I think he does more damage than the Havocs, but the Havocs are a lot safer, so you can potentially get more shots off. Yeah, I think because the fact that he's above 9 wounds means you can just hit him from, he doesn't get any protection, whereas the Havocs do. But yeah, he's a lot better than his melee counterpart, I can tell you that for free. Next one is probably my favourite model at the minute, Lord Discordant. You can get him for 190 points for the mark you have to pay for. 12-inch movement, 2 at weapon skill and ballistic skill, strength 4, toughness 6, 9 wounds, 6 attacks, leadership 9, and a 2-up save. He has access to the Bale Flamer or the Hellstalker auto cannon. I'd recommend bringing the Flamer because 2d3 plus 2 is also really good. On a strength 6 minus 2, 2 damage, 18-inch Flamer. I'm just going to not. He's my first S tier. I think he is probably one of the best models, if not the best model in the entire codex, other than a few, because he has access to his Hellstalker attacks, his Mecha Tendril attacks, and he is exceptionally good. So the way I run him is I run him with his Bale Flamer. I also run the Magma Cutter. I know most people will just say bring the Technovirus Injector. It's up to you what you bring. Technovirus Injector doesn't cost anything, and neither does the pardon me. Technovirus Injector just gives +1 damage to anything that you hit. That's a vehicle. So it's good against vehicle heavy factions. Anything that's just doing your head and you can just hit it. So Mecha Tendrils are strength 4, 2 damage. You get 3 damage hits on your chain glaive with +1 to wound. Bladed limbs are 3 damage with it against vehicles. So the way it works is, just to briefly explain why I think he is one of the, if not the best HQ unit the Emperor's Children has access to, or Chaos Marines in general have access to. I run him with Flames of Spite, which means that he does have access. It's a non-Emperor's Children specific stratagem warlord trait, where he gets to reroll all wounds, and his hit. He's hitting on 2s anyway, so a majority of the time you're just going to be pretty much mullering anything that gets near. Anything that charges him again because of the flamer, you can just pop Overwatch, auto hitting with a flamer. Again, just a fantastic character. So just bear with me a second. I'm going to sneeze. Right, sorry about that. So he does have. He fits any role you put him in. If you view him as a blender, he's going to absolutely shred everything. In addition, the warlord traits, for example, on him are phenomenally good. So I run in Flames of Spite, which means that every time he makes a melee attack, he gets to reroll the wound roll. And if you charge into a unit with his Impaler Chain Glaive, it is it's +1 to wound. So your strength 6, so you're wounding most things like tanks on 5s, +1 to wound 4s. But again, if you're in combat with a tank, you're pretty much going to beat it. Yeah. And in addition to that, any attacks that you make on unmodified wound rolls of 6 grant an additional mortal wound in addition to any other damage. So you're re-rolling wounds, which is already incredibly strong, and any hits of 6 you get are an automatic mortal wound in addition to damage. This stacks really well with the Flawless Perfection Legion trait, so it means that he gets -3 AP on his bladed limbs on the Hellstalker, and for his Impaler Chain Glaive, it's -3 AP anyway, so he gets -4, which brings the tanks up to a 6-up save. Yep, 2 damage. It's just he is a fucking blender. So he's got 6 attacks with the Chain Glaive, an extra 4 attacks with the Bladed Limbs, and an additional 4 attacks with the Mecha Tendrils. So that brings him up to a whopping 14 attacks. Yeah, the Mecha Tendrils are only strength 4, 1 damage. They're mainly used for killing Horde or like just tar pit units that are just trying to, keep you in combat or just waste your time. But again, 6 is a mortal wounds, so you're just going to keep throwing attacks, re-rolling your wounds. unmodified unmodified 6s are a mortal wound in addition to any other damage, and with the Legion trait, it's an extra AP. It's just, this guy is a fucking monster. He's really good with his Warlord traits. I mean, he's just, you can pop Delightful Agonies on him and give him a Feel No Pain. You can give him just Black Rune of Damnation, for example, if you want to, which means that you can make him -1 to wound, and any psyker that's nearby him gets perils within 18 inches for any psychic test that they get on a double. He is, every single time I have brought this guy, he has brought his points back infinitely. He is the workhorse of my army. You can bring multiple ones of these as well, because he's technically, at least to my knowledge, I got told you can bring multiple ones, but I only bring one anyway, and he's still infinitely lethal. So in melee, he gets exploding 6s to hit, re-rolling all wounds, +1 to wound with his when he's charging you. He gets to fight first because of the Slaanesh keyword. He's 190 points, which is pricey, but trust me, you are getting your money for it. The Lord Discordant is the easiest S tier I have ever ranked. He is exceptional value for what you get, and I would highly, highly recommend bringing him in every single list that you've got. So the next person we have access to, I believe, is Lucius the Eternal. Lucius the Eternal, the mini is probably one of the worst minis I've ever seen, which sucks because he is a cool character. I know he's quite divisive in the community. A lot of people don't like him, but, you know, who cares? In addition to that as well, for the Lord Discordant, you can put a psychic power on him. So my Lord Discordant had the Flames of Spite, Black Rune of Damnation, Illusory Supplication, which means you re-roll all wounds. You are +1 to wound when you charge. You are not getting hit on a 1 or a 3. You can't re-roll attacks against him. He's -1 to wound anyway because of the Black Rune of Damnation. Psychers fucking hate him. In addition, he also gets mortal wounds. He's fantastic. I'm just going to stop gushing about the Lord of Contagion, and I'm going to put focus on Lucius now. Lucius is an incredibly interesting model because he's an Empress Children character exclusive, so you can only run him if you are Empress Children. He is 120 points, 6-inch movement, 2 up weapon and ballistic skill, strength 5, toughness 4, 6 wounds and 5 attacks. Leadership 10, 3 up save, just standard Space Marine save, really, power armor save. He has a Doom Siren, which is a sonic flamer, essentially. Assault at range 12, assault D6. Because it's not a flamethrower weapon, it doesn't get extra hits. However, he does get strength 5, -3, 1 damage. But because it's a sonic weapon, anything within half range, he gets double damage. So it's 2 damage instead. Or an extra point of damage, not double damage. His melee weapon is his Duelist Sword, so it's strength user, so it's strength 5. You can buff that up, I believe, with psychic powers. -3 AP, 2 damage. It's just a Space Marine killer. It just shreds through anything. It's really good. I have yet to play Lucius in a game recently, shall I say, but because his mini's so bad. But when he gets a new mini, you will see him a lot more. With that said, he has the Marcus Slaanesh, which means if he fights within engagement, if he starts the fight phase within engagement range of enemy units, he fights first, which is also really good because if you get to fight first with him, he is a beast. So he has a very peculiar rule, which is unique to Lucius. Each time the model is selected to fight, if there are any models with an unmodified weapon skill of 3 or better within engagement range of this model, until the fight is resolved, you can add 3 to the model's attack characteristic. So he's gone from 5 attacks to 8 attacks. And each time a melee attack is made by this model to allow sorry about that, I'm tired. Each time a melee attack made by this model is allocated to a model with an unmodified weapon skill of 3 or better, add 1 to the damage characteristic of that attack. So he is damage 3. against any relevant unit, because most relevant units are hitting on a 3-up. That is insane. That's a lot of damage. So he has a 4-up across the board because of his armor of the Shrieking Souls. And if the model is destroyed by an attack made by an enemy model, your opponent must roll 2d6. If the result is less than that enemy model's leadership characteristic, the enemy's model will suffer d3 mortal wounds. Otherwise, the enemy model's unit suffers d6 mortal wounds. In either case, if you are playing, that's for Crusade, so we'll ignore that. The Lash of Torment, which is the lash you see here with his appendage. At the start of the fight phase, you can select one enemy unit within 3 inches, and that unit is not eligible to fight this phase until all eligible units from your army have done so. So he basically whips them around, basically, and stops them from hitting. And he also gives off reroll 1s to core units. If you make him your Warlord, you also get Flauntless Duelist, which is one of the better Emperor's Children ones, but that's not saying much. You can reroll hits, which again he's hitting on 2s, but again it's always nice. And while an enemy model is within engagement range of the Warlord, subtract 1, you get -1 attack on anything within range of him, which is somewhat swingy, because sometimes it is big, like against Space Marines it's big, but if you're fighting another character, which again you want to be with Lucius because he's a character killer, it can be useful, but again I wouldn't make him your Warlord. If you are going to bring him, just bring a Lord Discordant or a Demon Prince to make him your Warlord instead. He cannot use Honor the Prince, which I always found a bit peculiar, considering that the only people who can use Honor the Prince, I believe, you can't have it unless he is... No, he can't use it. They can't use it on him, unfortunately. No idea why, because he's basically a Space Marine that can do the same thing as a Noise Marine, but apparently not. But with that said, where would I rank him? I think because he's so good in combat and because his rule is basically the better the enemy is, the more contemptuous and aggressive he is, and better he is at fighting just to prove how good he is. I completely fuck with that. I think that is such a good implementation of law and of rules because he's so fucking arrogant and he just wants to prove he's better than everybody and he can just kick the shit out of pretty much anybody. I think he is equal to the, maybe a bit better than the Dark Apostle, but he's a single unit, but the Prayers. I think, in my experience, the Prayers have been useful, but Lucius, again, his killing power is phenomenally good. So I think he is up there in the A tier. If I actually will make him next to Demon Prince, yeah. Because he's basically, he hits as hard as a Demon Prince against any relevant unit. But the Demon Prince has access to psychic powers, more movement, and is got some gimmicky abilities he can do as well. But Lucius has the exact same thing. And the reroll 1s is always good if you're running up with a big blob of Terminators or Legionnaires or even Noise Marines. Like he's just a solid unit to bring. Right, next up is the Master of Executions. Master of Executions is now an elite. They removed him from the HQ unit in the last codex. He's now an elite character. He is 6-inch move, 80 points because you have to bring him with a Slanesh mark, which is normally 65. 2-up weapon skill, 3-up ballistic, 4-up strength, 4 strength, 4 toughness, 5 wounds, 6 attacks, and 3-up save with 9 leadership. He has a bolt pistol, but no one's using that. And his main is the Axe of Dismemberment, which is his main melee weapon, the signature axe. That would be plus, I think it's plus 3 strength off the top of my head. Yeah, plus 3 strength, minus 3 AP, 2 damage. Each time an attack is made with the weapon, an unmodified hit roll inflicts 2 mortal wounds on the target, and then the attack sequence ends. I read this initially thinking, oh, so he hits somebody, he gets a 6, and then he stops hitting them. Apparently not. It means if you've got a 6, it's 2 mortal wounds. So you have 6 attacks. Let's say you roll 2 6s to wound. Sorry, 2 6s to hit. So you can potentially fish for 6s with him. And it just does 2 mortal wounds for that attack. It doesn't get extra damage off it, which in my opinion can be a bit swingy, but you're 99% of the time you are wanting to use mortal wounds over regular damage. So, for example, against Death Guard, a unmodified hit roll of a 6 is a dead Plague Marine, which is good because if it wasn't, it would be -1 damage. So instead of hitting on damage 2, it's hitting on -1. So he'd have to commit more attacks to, a specific amount of people, which is, again, it just improves his damage output. Again, it's good against vehicles as well because 2 mortal wounds, most vehicles don't have a feel no pain. It's just extremely, extremely fun to use. His abilities, he's got Let the Galaxy Burn, which is mainly useful for when he's in melee, which is on the 3rd turn, for wanton slaughter. So extra 6s are an extra hit and an extra mortal wound. I don't know if it means that if he hits somebody and he gets an extra hit, I don't know if that's just an extra hit or an extra 2 mortal wounds. So someone might have to clarify that. I think if that's 2 mortal wounds, in addition to an extra hit, which is another 2 mortal wounds, that may need some looking at because 4 mortal wounds from a single hit is pretty busted. Other than that, he is pretty good for you, like movement. Like the way it works is with him is obviously 6-inch movement. He can use, I think he can use Honor the Prince. No, he can't use Honor the Prince. Just ignore me. Yeah, so bear with me. Actually, I think he can. No, his character can't use it. So he can't use Honor the Prince, which is unfortunate. But he has other ways of getting in. So he's able to perform a heroic intervention if it's within 6 inches horizontally and 5 inches vertically of any enemy unit, instead of 3 inches. So he gets double inches on his horizontal charge for his heroic intervention. And each time the model makes a heroic intervention move, so long as it ends that move either closer to the closest enemy model or within engagement range of an enemy character unit, it can move up to 6 inches. This is busted. You get free movement for jack shit. It's fantastic. He's cheap as chips. I run him every game. I think he's good to have as a deterrent. So you run him up with a squad of noise marines or something you want to protect. Slap him in the middle. He fights first because it's heroic intervention. He can't take a punch because he's only 5 wounds toughness 4, so if anyone hits him, he's pretty dead. But it's just the heroic intervention threat. Your opponent, if he knows what he's doing, is going to look at that and just be like, oh, it's not that big of a deal. And then the ones that do know and have experienced it are going to get hit like a truck by him because he hits very fucking hard and he's cheap. And he's basically, you stay away from this unit, otherwise I'm going to run into you and I'm going to hit you and it's going to fucking hurt. And the fact that he's so cheap, you can bring multiple ones. However, they do take up elite slots. But again, it's up to you. I bring one every game. I think he's easily an S tier pick. I think he is one of my most favourite units. I think he's, why did I sound American then? But he's one of my favourite units. He just does so much for what you get from him. And I recommend bringing him in pretty much any list, especially against combat armies. So if you've got Blood Angels or any other combat army, deep striking behind you, he's like, yeah, no, run into me at full force. I don't care. Do what you want. I'm still going to run into you and I'm going to hit you. In addition, as well, I do think he has Death Ecstasy. Yeah. Which means that if, for example, someone charges him and if they do kill him, which is entirely plausible because he's not that durable, he then gets to fight on death for 2 CP, which is nasty. You can also slap him with a relic, which you can give him the. It's not a very good relic, but you can give him. I think you can give him the intoxicating elixir. Just bear with me a second, viewers. I'm just going to try and have a look, see if you can. Oh, you can give him Warlord trait. I don't think you can give him a relic. Yeah, you can give him a relic as well. So it'd have to be a. Yeah. So you can give him relics. Yeah, he's S tier. Easy. You have to pay CP for it, though. So in your list generation, you want, usually for Chaos, especially in Nephilim, you want to avoid using all your CP before you start the game, because obviously, especially for Emperor's Children, you wanted to save CP for that extra 6 inches that's guaranteed on your charge of your movement. But again, he doesn't have Honor the Prince. He's a very good person to put relics and warlord traits on extra. He's cheap. He does a lot of damage. He can come back with that gimmicky relic. I think it's the... I forgot off the top of my head, but it's some weird relic where it's the face of a guy that wanted to live forever, and he ends up, Slanesh doing Slaneshy things. But yeah, typical. And it means he can get brought back with D3 wounds out of engagement range of other units. Next up is the Master of Possessions, another fantastic unit. He is 120 points because you have to pay the extra for the relic. 6-inch move, 3 up weapon ballistic skill, 4 up strength and toughness, 5 wounds, 5 attacks. He has the Staff of Possession, which gives him an extra 3 strength, -1 AP and D3 damage. But if he hits a Psyker, after the bearer has resolved all its attacks, it suffers perils of the warp, which is it's quite funny. He has Let the Galaxy Burn, Armor of Contempt, 5 up invulnerable save, the Rights of Possession, which means that while an enemy unit is within 12 inches of the model, each time that unit suffers perils of the warp, it gets an additional mortal wound. So if you punch another Psyker, you can potentially deal an extra 2 mortal wounds to him minimum, which is always nice. But Psyker on Psyker fights are extremely rare, especially in combat. With that said, he can also have, which in my opinion is his most broken ability, his Sacrificial Dagger. So there's people in the community that have explained this to me in a far greater detail than I could. But basically, you can do gimmicky movement strats with him and give him +2 to his cast. So the way it works is when he tries to manifest a power from his unique discipline, which is the Malefic discipline, if it's within 3 inches of friendly Emperor's Children infantry units, which excludes your demonkin, so like your possessed, your warp talons, etc., or your cultists, because on cultists it'd just be easier, everyone would just pick cultists. You can select one of those units and make a sacrifice. If you do, they suffer D3 mortal wounds. The unit suffers D3 mortal wounds, and you can add 2 to the psychic test. So the way it works is, obviously, the strategy is you stab somebody with a dagger. Usually, I believe it's a obliterator. Usually, so you kill one of them, they take D3 mortal wounds, and then you bring him back with. You can do it on Terminators as well. So, for example, if you get D3 mortal wounds, you suffer 3, you kill one, you then use his power, I think it's Pact of Flesh, where you can resurrect a model and then move it within squad coherency, so you just get free movement, and it goes off on a 3 because normally it goes off on a 2, goes off on a 5, which is really good, and you can regain full wounds when it gets brought back. So you kill him to make him move closer to the enemy. In addition, I'm just going to briefly run through his Malefic discipline while we're here. First power is Warp Marked. Warp charge value is 7. Select one enemy unit within 18 inches of the Psyker. Until your next Psychic phase, every time a Demonkin or Demon Engine model makes an attack against the unit, they get +1 to wound, which is very good. Especially when you're bringing Warp Talons, when you're re-rolling all wounds and you're getting +1 to wound. It's also nice to have that extra damage. Also works on Obliterators, which are very good for shooting, again. And it also works mainly on Possessed, because Possessed are blenders when they run into pretty much anything. A squad of 5 Possessed have 25 attacks usually, and will pretty much shred anything that they get near. Cursed Earth, it means that it goes off on a 7. It's an aura. And until the start of your next Psychic phase, a Demonkin or Demon Engine unit within 6 inches of the Psyker gain a 4-up invulnerable save, so they're ignoring 50% of the damage potentially that's coming their way. And each time an enemy unit finishes a charge move within engagement range of the unit, roll 1d6. On a 2 or a 4, it suffers a mortal wound, and on a 5-up, it suffers D3. Again, it's just a 4-up invul on your Possessed. You just absolutely shred stuff. Possession, it's okay. If it's manifested within 9 inches and visible to the Psyker, roll a d6, add 1 to the result if the result of the psychic test was a 10, unmodified 10, sorry. If the result is greater than the target's toughness, one model in that unit is destroyed, and then that unit, if it hasn't been destroyed, suffers d3 mortal wounds. It's okay. Infernal Power, Warp Charge of 6, one friendly Demon Kin, a Demon Engine unit within 18 inches of the Psyker. Until the start of the next Psychic phase, every melee attack made by a Demon King or a Demon Engine model in the unit on an unmodified hit roll of a 6 automatically wounds the target. And in such cases, for the purposes of rules that are triggered by a particular wound roll, the attack is considered to have been made with an unmodified wound roll of 6, so you get an extra AP. Now you understand why he's brought in most lists. And then finally, he has Mutated Invigoration. Warp Charge is 6. Again, most of these powers are quite average, between 6 to 5 on the cast time. The cast value. If manifested, select a friendly Legion unit, might I add, of the Psyker. Until the start of your next Psychic phase, add 1 to either the Strength or Toughness characteristic of the models in that unit. If the model was that you selected was a Demon Kin in the Demon Engine unit, and you got a Psychic test of 10 plus from under any circumstance, so that usually goes off on a... If you get a Venom Crawler nearby, it's +1. If you kill and use the dagger, you get +2 extra, so you get +3. So that if you get a 7, you have a Demon Engine or a Demon Kin unit that has +1 strength and +1 toughness, which is really good. Not as useful as the other powers, but it's still pretty good to have. Toughness 6, strength 6 possessed, and then wounded on +1 to attack, which would go off on a 4, usually, because of the way it works with Warpmark. So, where would I rank the Master of Possessions? I personally think, because he's got access to 2 powers, he can manifest 2 powers, and he knows Smite and 2 extra, he's S tier. He's better than the Master of Executions, in my opinion. He is one of the strongest buffing characters in Chaos in general. I think for Empress Children, especially for Demon Kin like you possessed, where you want to run them in and get them into combat and just have exploding 6s and just shred anything, he's really good. I think he's 120 points for a good Psyker that can get reliable casts off, movement shenanigans, anti-Psyker, extremely useful. His mark, you don't really want him in combat, but again, if he gets into combat, you've got your other stuff that you can intervene with. He's really good. I think he's really, really good. Next up, we have the Mauler Fiend, which is the melee version of the Forge Fiend. The Mauler Fiend is 140 points. You can bring the Lash Tendrils on him, which will give him an extra +10. So that's 150 points usually, but you normally bring him for 140. He has 10-inch movement, which is pretty good. 3 up weapon skill and ballistic skill, 7 strength toughness, 12 wounds, 6 attacks, 3 up save, 8 leadership. You can bring the Magma Cutter on him, or 2 Magma Cutters on him, which is 6-inch range, assault 1, strength 8, -4, d6 +2. So it's a melter gun pretty much. In addition to that, you can also just bring his fists, which are free. Strength ×2, -3, d3 +3. That's a very chunky damage. Again, where would I put this guy? Yeah, you've got Demon Engine, so you get a wound if you've lost 1 a turn. Armor Contempt. He doesn't have any Flamer attacks, but he does get extra hits with Let the Galaxy Burn. So I think... Oh, in addition as well, sorry, I forgot he has another ability. Each time a charge roll is made for the unit, you can ignore any and all modifiers to the charge roll. So any Death Guard inexorable, anything that can deny your charge. So, for example, the -2 to your charge from the Death Guard, in my experience, is quite annoying. So you just ignore that, and they don't have anything to do, and they can run in, which is it's handy. But again, if you're running into Death Guard, you usually have to deal with the fact that they have a Foul Blight Spawn with the Foul Stench Vats Relic, but for most things, it's pretty good. So, for example, terrain, if it reduces your terrain reduces your charge distance. It's just, you don't particularly care. With that said, I would probably rank him. I think he's pretty bad. I think he's better than the Leviathan, but I do think. I don't know. He's better than the melee Leviathan, at least in my experience. But he's just not good. It's a demon engine that can punch. He does have access to blasphemous machines, which means he can start at full bracket if you want to put Demon Forge on him and get plus improve the ballistic skill by 1, but it's weapon skill and ballistic skill 1. He's all right, I guess. He's better than Iron Warriors, but I'm gonna have to be fair and just say I think he's got 6 attacks. He's better than the other Leviathan, but he's still really bad. I don't like the Maul Fiends in combat. I think they're a fantastic model. I think they look cool as hell. But he's just not good, which is a shame because he is a fantastic looking model. Next up, Obliterators. So Obliterators are 90 points a model. You don't have to pay for the map because they don't get access to it. Movement 5. Just a quick heads up, by the way, everybody. I'm going to be speed running through these quite a lot because we've got quite a lot to go through, and this is going on for nearly 2 hours now. So it's going to be 5-inch move, 3 up weapon skill, ballistic skill, strength toughness 5, 5 wounds, 4 attacks, 2 up save. Flesh metal guns, heavy d6 plus 9, strength 5 minus 1 damage, heavy d6 plus heavy d3 plus 3, minus 7 7 strength, minus 2 AP, 2 damage, and focus malice 24-inch range, which all of these are 24-inch range. Heavy d3, strength 9, minus 3, 4 damage. He also is pretty good in combat with crushing fists, so it's strength times 2, which is strength 10, minus 3, 2 damage, and he gets 4 attacks each. The problem is, in my opinion, I'll list the rest of his abilities first. So he's got a 5 up invul, and he doesn't suffer any penalty for moving and firing. And if he's in engagement range, they can shoot at -1 to hit, but that doesn't matter because they have access to the Legion stratagem, so they're hitting on 3s anyway. Yeah, they're very powerful, but the problem is the damage is just really swingy. They're basically better than Havocs than bringing chain cannons because they're cheaper. They can deep strike. They have like the Galaxy Burn, so heavy in the first turn. This is the problem. They're extremely slow moving. You'll want to deep strike them, so you'll want to save them for turn 2. So you don't get access to your heavy stratagem unless you pop a stratagem that allows you to use your wanton destruction in your regular phase. So I would personally say that these guys are, yeah, you can use some gimmicky stuff with them with the Obliterators. They do a lot of shooting damage, but you're paying for 3 models that are slow, but the shooting's really good. Like they're very adaptable. Strength 9, minus 3, 4 damage, D3 shots. In Emperor's Children, that's extra 6s, unmodified 6s as well to wound, or an extra AP, so that's -4. But it's D3, so you'd need to bring at least 2 or 3 to actually get anything productive off them. I just think they're incredibly useful. I have used them. They do sometimes make the points back, but they're very swingy. That's the problem. I think they're going to be a B tier, very high B tier. I think they're just under A tier, and that's because the movement is too slow. They don't have access to one of the... Oh, they do have access to one of the prints, actually. So put them in low A tier. Ignore me. These guys aren't particularly good, though, when you advance them, because obviously it's heavy. You can't shoot after that, but again, if you just want to run them up board and just spray anything down, the exploding 6s are pretty good on your first turn, but you can deep strike them, so if your opponent gets caught off guard, you just drop them behind enemy lines and just start shredding anything. But yeah, I think they're low A tier. I think I've used them. I personally think they're really good, but they're too pricey. They need to come down in price. I think maybe 85 points a model, maybe a bit more. I don't want to be that guy who's like, oh, make them 60 so I can bring 50 of them and then just delete people off the board. No, I think about 85 points per model, maybe a bit, just to get him into that little sweet spot. Because base kit, they're actually pretty fun, and they can synergize well with the Master of Possessions. But again, they're very flawed, but they are fun but flawed. Speaking of fun but not flawed, Possessed, 9-inch movement, 28 points a model. They don't have the marker Slanesh, but they do have the Slanesh keyword. Usually, I think they do at least. No, they don't. Right. So it's 3 up weapon skill, 3 up ballistic skill, strength 5, toughness 5, 3 wounds, 5 attacks, 6 attacks on the champ, 3 up save, 9 leadership. Hideous Mutations is strength user, so strength 5 can be buffed up with certain psychic powers. Yeah, it's these guys are bad motherfuckers. They do not fuck around. If you slap Solitaire Portent on them, the Demon King power. I forgot the one that gives them +1 to wound. I forgot what it is off the top of my head because I've had a long day. But if you slap that on them on a unit and then you run the possessed into them, I'd recommend running a squad of 5 usually because the way it works is they're immune to blast that way. But it's strength user -2 AP 2 damage, so it's very good damage. Maybe not against Death Guard or any other -1 damage units, but the amount of attacks, you're pretty much going to shred anything. In melee, you get exploding 6s as well if you're in the correct doctrine. Wanton Slaughter, you do get an extra AP on hits of 6 as well, in 6s to wounds, so -3 AP, which is really good. You can bring an icon, but it's for extra 5 points, and we just don't recommend you bring it because it's just not it's pointless. Just don't bring it. They have a 5 pinball as well, and they subtract 1 for your enemy leadership. Excuse me, when they're within 6 inches of the model. Right, with that said, I'm just going to take a quick drink. I would probably recommend that you bring at least 2 squads of 5, in my experience. Sorry about that. But yeah, you bring a squad of 5, 2 squads of 5 maybe. I bring at least 2 squads of 5, and every time I bring them, I always get value. They're extremely quick. You can't use Honor the Prince on them, I don't think. You can, sorry. You can use Honor the Prince on them, so you can get potentially a 15-inch movement guaranteed when you advance, and an extra 6-inch on the charge. They are nasty, especially with the Master Possessions. I think they're an easy A tier. They're a really good unit. I'm definitely going to buy some more when I can. But other than that, they're A tier. I think they're really good. That's mainly if they get buffed up with the Master Possessions, though. But for Word Bearers, I think they're definitely S tier. But for Emperor's Children, they're A tier. They're just really good. Next up, Venom Crawler. Venom Crawler's a fast attack, 12-inch move, 105 points. 3 up weapon and ballistic, 7 strength, 7 toughness, 9 wounds, 6 attacks, 3 up save. Excruciator cannon, 36-inch range, assault 3, so you're hitting on I think it's 3. Yeah, you ignore it. Yeah, you're Emperor's Children. So you're hitting on 3s. Strength 6 -2 damage. That's pretty good for a shooting, especially. It's quite good for a demon engine. And Soul Flayer, Tendril, and Claws. So it's strength user. So strength 7 -3 2 damage. Really good melee. In addition, it's also a demon engine, so you can synergize well with your Master of Possessions if you do bring it. The real reason why you bring him, though, is if you give him +1 to cast for any psychic test taken by psychers from the Emperor's Children within 9 inches of the model. If you are bringing Legionnaires, you will probably want to bring the psychers with them, and you get +1 to cast, which is massive. In addition, that's an aura, so if it's within 9 inches, he's 9 wounds, so you can't target him. unless you've got a specific rule that says it. He doesn't have an invul save, unfortunately. Oh, sorry, he does have an invul save. He's a demon engine, and he regains a wounded turn if you've shipped one off. And he does explode if you do get killed. The +1 to cast aura, if you're very psychic heavy, is very good. It's very good against Thousand Suns because it means that you can somewhat contest them. But other than that, I think he is. He's just good. He's 105 points. It's quite cheap. He's 12-inch movement, so he can keep up with everybody. Yeah, I think he's A tier. I think he's better than Obliterators, in my opinion. In fact, no, I'd say Obliterators are better sheerly because of the shooting power, whereas this guy is just a buff character. He's really good. But he's still A tier, still really good A tier. Next up, Warp Talons. Warp Talons are a fast attack slot. They are weapon skill and ballistic skill of 3 up. They're a 12-inch move, 28 points a model. Strength 4, toughness 4, 2 wounds, 5 attacks, and 6 attacks on the champion. 9 leadership and 3 up save. They have the warp claws, which are minus 2 AP, 1 damage, but you get to reroll wounds base kit with them. And it's strength user, so strength 4, minus 2, 1 damage, but you can slap powers on them from the Demonkin. The Malefic Discipline on the warp guy. Once that's done, you can then, you can buff them in anyway, but you usually bring them in Deep Strike and to capture objectives that your opponent's thingy. Forgot about. They do have Let the Galaxy Burn and Armor of Contempt. They won't have Armor of Contempt for long because, like I mentioned previously, they're getting rid of it. Let the Galaxy Burn, again, in turn 3, if you Deep Strike them in, charge them in. They do have access to one of the prints, so you can get a 3-inch charge out of your... So you'd have to roll a 3 or up on a D6 when you're charging in with one of the prints. They're a very good target to put these on. You can target pretty much anything with them. You can try to wrap them up so they can't fall back, and if they do, they'll have to use a stratagem that allows them to run away. So you're wasting command points of the opponent. Each time an enemy unit is excluding monsters and vehicles within engagement range of the unit is selected to fall back, roll off with your opponent. If you win, they cannot fall back. So no semi-reliable fallback. So it's alright. It can be mega depending on what it is, but it's usually way better than it sounds. So no fallback is huge. However, the reliability is something to question. But the fact that you still have that, your opponent is going to know what you'd bring in and what they do. So they are going to want to avoid getting into combat with them, but if they deep strike in behind cover and your opponent tries to shoot them, you can still catch up to them because 18-inch movement with Honor the Prince. So you're 12-inch base, 18-inch, extra 6 inches from Honor the Prince, and then you're running in and charging them, which is fucking ridiculous. Nothing is outrunning these guys. 28 points a model. You can bring them usually... If you're deep striking, I'd recommend bringing bigger model sizes, but usually I run them in squads of 5 because, again, blast rule and maneuverability. So you can bring multiple ones in and allow them to do objectives. I'll just sit on a back objective on your opponent's line, cause a ruckus by preventing certain units from falling back, pincer move people because Emperor's Children are fucking lightning fast. Fight first in the fight phase. Usually, oh no, sorry, don't get that because they don't have the Marcus Lanesh. Extra hits get in combat from 6s in turn 3. They're just, I think that in my experience, I bring them almost every game, and they are notoriously hated. Not because they hit very hard, because they don't. They can do. It's from range of attacks. It's lower strength attacks, high volume, re-rolling wounds innately. In my opinion, I think they are S tier. I think the amount of potential threat, they're very similar to the Master of Executioners, as in it's the potential of the threat that they have. Like they can come from nowhere and shred you from behind, or at least tar pit a vehicle of some kind. They're very, very useful, and I cannot recommend them enough. I think they're fantastic. and you should bring them if you do have access to them. Speaking of things you should bring, the Warpsmith. Just kidding, because the Warpsmith is trash. He's a demon engine character in a list, an army where demon engines are usually pretty bad. In fact, I'm going to move up the Leviathan to B tier because of the exploding sixes on shots and the potential for damage. But again, that's low B tier. But yeah, back to the Warpsmith. Warpsmith is 95 points, including the mark, which is normally 80. He's weapon skill 3, ballistic skill 2, strength toughness 4, 5 wounds, 5 attacks, 9 leadership, 2 up save. His HQ. He has access to a Thunder Hammer, which you should bring the Thunder Hammer if you are bringing him for combat. But again, you don't bring this guy for combat because you weapon skill 3 with a Thunder Hammer, you're hitting on 3s. If it was 2s, it might be different, but usually you want to bring just the Exalted Power Axe because it's strength 6 minus 2 damage, which is pretty good. That's all right. It's basically just a flamer, melee flamer, and he does have a flamer. But again, he's trash. I think he's terrible. He can regain 3 wounds on a demon engine, which is alright if you've got a gimmicky strat where you can move him next to your Lord Discordant, but your Lord Discordant can regenerate wounds anyway, so it's not that much of a problem. He's not going to be in combat because he's a Warpsmith. Excuse me. And in your command phase, you can enrage a friendly model, and if it does, you can add 1 to its hit rolls. And it's a friendly vehicle model as well, so that does work on Leviathan Dreadnoughts, but you're paying a premium for bringing them anyway, so you'll be hitting with Leviathan Dreadnoughts on 2. It's just... he's just antithesis to what the Emperor's Children actually do. Like, you don't bring Emperor's Children for demon engines. If you bring Iron Warriors for demon engines, you don't bring this guy. He's cool model, really good model, but I've never looked at him and thought, yeah, I have to bring him. I think he's pretty bad. I think he's one of the worst units you can bring, especially for Emperor's Children. But yeah, next up we have a surprising sleeper hit, the Accursed Cultists. So the Accursed Cultists, in my experience, I've played with them twice, and they are... we'll just run through the stats first. I'll just get through it. So there's 2 profiles. There's a mutant and a torment. Mutants are the weaker ones. Torments are the bigger demony guys. Movement 6, weapon skill 4 up. The torments are strength 5, mutants are strength 4, toughness 4 for both. 3 wounds on the torment, 1 wound on a mutant, 2 attacks on a mutant, 2d3 for the torment, 6 up leadership and 6 up save. The torments have strength user, so strength 4 minus 1 AP, 1 damage. The mutants have strength 4 minus 1 damage, and the torments have strength user minus 1 2 damage with 2 AP. Minus 2 AP, 2 damage each. I'm tired, I apologise. But they cannot perform actions and cannot embark within transport models. But at the start of your command phase, you can select a following unit, one of the following rules. You can return up to 3 destroyed mutants in this unit, and you can either return a destroyed torment model to the unit with its 4 wounds remaining. So this means you're getting 3 wounds back a turn, essentially. If you want to capture an objective from an opponent, so let's, for example, say they run a deep striking unit into your backline, you get killed, you lose 6 models, and they've got 15 models on the objective and you've got 12. Just bring the mutants back, and now you're contesting the objective. They don't get the point because it's equal. Unless they have obsec, in which case they do, but it's very unlikely. So you can do some gimmicky movement strats with them when you resurrect them. They also have a 6 up feel no pain, which is ludicrously stupid because they are 15 points for a torment and 6 points for a mutant, which is really good. You can get a small unit of these guys and you put them on a back objective, and you will get that objective. Like they're not going to get killed by bolt guns from a rhino or other like abilities, for example. Like, we do with cultists, normally what people will do is they'll just commit the crap weapons to them, and the cultists will die anyway because of toughness 3, but toughness 4 with a 6 up, feel no pain. I'd take that deal. I think they're really good. And in addition, if you destroy mutants, they don't care about morale, they're not bothered. So you can just bring loads of mutants and they'll not care. And you get -1 leadership when you're in an aura. I think these guys are the best choice in the Chaos Space Marines Codex, other than Noise Marines, I'd say, for Emperor's Children. But I genuinely think if you're running Emperor's Children, you're running Noise Marines in every list, usually. However, I think the Accursed Cultists, if Noise Marines didn't exist, Accursed Cultist would be the choice, because I just think most people, they're very divisive. Some people love them. Some people think they're the best thing ever. Others despise them and think they're absolutely trash. I am in the former. I think they are fantastic. They are too annoying. They're too tanky to get decent, to not die to shit firepower. So your opponent either has to ignore them or commit. Alternatively, they are actually pretty good in combat, which is surprising because it's just volume of attacks. So you're basically getting a cultist with extra strength, extra toughness, extra. I don't think you get. No, you do get an extra attack, as cultists get 1 attack, I think. 6-inch movement and a feel no pain for a mutant, which is a 6 points per model. Torment's 15. So it's just do I need to say anything more? These guys are phenomenal. Bring them if you want. However, not for Emperor's Children. They're still really good though. Next up, we have bikers. Bikers are usually better in other legions. So the main one that stands out from Blog from the Blood God is the Red Corsairs list that he brought with the bikers. That was an interesting little video to watch. So if you want to watch him, it's Blog for the Blood God. He does a really good list for Red Corsairs fans who are watching this, all 2 of you. They do have, jokes aside, I will hurry this up because, again, it's about 2 hours roughly. So they are 14-inch movement, 30 points a model, 3 up weapon and ballistic, strength 4, toughness 5, 3 wounds, 3 attacks, 4 on the sergeant, and 8 up leadership, 8 leadership, 9 on the sergeant, 3 up save. Now, the problem is you can bring an icon on them, and they can do some pretty big damage if you let them get close. You have to pay 15 points extra, so a minimum amount of bikers you can bring is 3. So that's 90 points, so 105 points for 3 models. But you get an auto advance 6 if you decide to advance, but you don't make an advance roll. Instead, you just get an extra 6 inches added onto your movement, which is 20-inch movement in turn 1, which is mega. You can bring them with melter guns and everything like that, or combi plasmas or combi melters or whatever it is, but they're an extra 5 points. They're all right. They're okay. I mean, I've had a grand total of 1 game with them, and they were there. They're okay in combat because they can get 4 attacks if they're running chain swords, and it's just you fight first. 6s explode to hit. They're pretty good. I'd say they're about B tier. I think they're not going to be like, oh, you have to bring them every list, but I think the bikers. I'm just going to bring Legionnaires up, actually, because I think Legionnaires with the psychic powers are very, very good, but the rest of them are pretty bad. But yeah. Bikers, middle of the road. They're useful. They're very fun to play, but they're not. The Emperor's Children are not the faction for bikers. They are the faction for fighting and just being good at everything. So, with that said, I would say they're about B tier. I think that's a pretty fair assessment. If I am missing something, please let me know, because I don't want to be that guy who's like, oh, they are bad. They must be, what you call it, they're very good at doing this one particular nuanced thing, and I've just completely overlooked it. But again, like I say, it's my list. I appreciate that, but it's my list. Next up, Chosen. 25 points a model, 6-inch movement, 3 up weapon skill and ballistic skill, strength, toughness 4, 3 wounds as opposed to 2, 3 attacks, 9 leadership, 10 for the sergeant, 4 attacks for the sergeant as well, and a 3 up save. These guys are, again, they're very similar to the Accursed Cultist in terms of their divisiveness. Some people think Chosen are fantastic, others think they are really bad and very, very costly compared to Terminators. So Terminators, they share a lot of similarities, Chosen and Emperor's Children. Chosen and Terminators, especially in Emperor's Children. Terminators can be brought with a Black Rune of Damnation, but you can also bring them on these. These guys get access to it. So if you get a unit of them, Combi Melters and Combi Flamers are Plasma as well. They do get an extra +10. So you're 25 points a model plus 15 overall. So minimum amount that you will be able to bring are for 140 points for 5 models. They do get one of the prints because they're not characters. And if they destroy an enemy unit until the end of the battle, they're in every wanton, it's not wanton, destruction, massacre, and slaughter. They're in it for the entire thing. If they get one unit killed, they have malicious volleys, let the galaxy burn. So if you pop a flamer on them, you're getting extra 2 shots. They can bring in a cursed weapon, which is really good. I think they're really good. I've used a squad of 10 once. I think 10 was a bit much because you can bring a Power Fist on them for extra. I think it's every 5 models you can bring 1 Power Fist. But you're hitting on 3s anyway because it's Power Fist Emperor's Children. Personally, I think I think if I was to run them again, I would run them as 2 squads of 5 instead of 1 squad of 10 because I had to borrow one of my friend's armies once because I couldn't have access to mine, so I had to use his 10 in a casual game, and they were quite strong. Like they definitely, the extra wound is important, like because a lot of stuff is damaged too, especially at the minute with the way the anti-Space Marine stuff, damage 2 weapons are everywhere, and Chaos Chosen are very similar to Death Guard in the regard of it'll take more shots to kill unnecessarily than it would normally. So I genuinely think, you see, if you bring the Chosen in, they're really good in combat as well. I think they're better than MSU units of these guys in Emperor's Children are really good. The Accursed Cultists are also really good, but for different reasons. But I think the Chosen, because of the way the Emperor's Children are with the quality aspect of it, I think the Emperor's Children favour Chosen over everything else. But yeah, with that said, I think they're A tier. I think they're very, very good. Now, one of my favourite units, the Noise Marines, they are 21 points a model. They always get the Mark of Slanesh integrated into their thing anyway. 6-inch move, 3 up weapon and ballistic, strength 4, toughness 4, 2 wounds, 3 attacks. It's basically regular Chaos Space Marines. However, this is the trick. They can have access to an icon, which gives them +1 to their attacks hit rolls in melee, which is alright. I wouldn't bring it personally because there's stuff you will need to bring. So I'm just going to say this. I think Noise Marines should be brought in every single Emperor's Children list. And yes, I am ranking it higher than the Master of Possession. And there's a reason why. This is my opinion. Like, there are people who are going to be like, oh, the Master of Possessions is just really good and it's super good and you need to bring it in every list. And yeah, you're pretty accurate. I think you'd be able to argue for that. But I think the Noise Marines are just nasty. So Normally, what most competitive lists do is they'll bring 5 squads, roughly, or maybe a bit less. They'll add chainswords, so it's free. Chainswords don't cost anything. Power fist, which is 10 points. You're still hitting on 3s with a power fist. And you also get access to a blastmaster. So the way it works is you bring multiple squads of 5. You don't bring them in big squads, because if you have multiple squads, then they get access to. If you get a big squad, they get access to blast and all this other shit, and it's just going to paint a bigger target on your back. Plus, the multiple squads have access to more maneuverability across the board, so you can hit from multiple different angles. But the main thing is the Blastmaster, which is ridiculously good. This thing is a monster of a gun. It's plus 15 points, so it is the most expensive choice that they do get. It's 40. There's 2 frequencies. So there's the single frequency, which is 48-inch range, heavy 3, flat, strength 8, -3 AP, 3 damage, and it's a sonic weapon. The varied frequency has 36-inch range, 6 hits from the assault, so you can advance and shoot with this one. Strength 5, -2, 1 damage, sonic weapon. If they're in half range, it gets an extra damage. So you're hitting -3, strength 8, 4 damage flat, which is fucking ludicrous from a troop's choice. So not only are these guys able to sit at the back and prevent people from capturing objectives, the 48-inch threat range is something your opponent will have to take into account. Otherwise, they will get shot and you will shoot them, and you can use prescience or whatever it is to give them +1 to hit in ranged, and then you just absolutely fucking massacre whatever's in front of you. Even if you only get 4 wounds on something, or 3 wounds, it's 3 wounds that they're not going to get back, unless they're a demon engine and you leave them 3 turns. But yeah, they're just fantastic. You can bring a Doom Siren on the champion, but that's an extra 10 points. 12-inch range, assault D6. It's basically Lucius' flamethrower. It's a sonic flamethrower. Alternatively, there is a little strategy that I use. It's not very effective, but in comparison to the fun, it's really fun. So you bring Sonic Blasters. So Sonic Blasters are these smaller Assault 3 24-inch bolters. They're basically bolters that you pay 5 points for. You're guaranteed 3 shots. -1 AP, which is, I'll be honest, it's shit at the minute. -1 AP is not good, because any Space Marine looks at it and just goes, yeah, that's fine, I don't care. Or anything in cover goes, yeah, that's fine, I don't care. +1 for damage. And +1 damage as well when you're within half range. It's assault, so you can advance this and shoot this on a 3 because Emperor's Children. And if you bring a full squad of them, it does get expensive. So Noise Marines are very expensive. So for a squad of 5, it's 105 points, plus the 10 from the Power Fist, and plus the 15. So it's 130 points for 5. But they're just so good. You bring the Blastmaster, it's non-negotiable. If you bring in Noise Marines, you're not bringing them for the Doom Sirens or the Sonic Blasters, you're bringing them for the Blastmaster. That's the big one. I would say they're an S tier pick because they're just so good. They are the quintessential bread and butter troop of the Emperor's Children. If you're playing Emperor's Children, you're playing them mainly for Noise Marines because they're just so versatile. Oh, do you want to run up and shoot stuff? Blastmaster. Oh, do you want to sit back and hold an objective? You can still shoot them with a Blastmaster. Oh, you want to get into combat with them? Yeah. Here's squads that will fight first and can fight on death with chainsaws, which aren't that good admittedly, but it's better than no. And a Power Fist, which will punch the shit out of you. They're just really good. And they can hit on 2s if you bring an icon, but I don't recommend bringing an icon. You want to keep them cheap and keep them so you bring in as many Blastmasters as you can. S tier, easy S tier. Next up, because I want to get this tier list over and done with. Cultists, regular cultists. I'm a big fan of cultists. They're not the best though, which sucks because I started in 8th edition, so as a Chaos player, I was told, oh, buy cultists, and I'm like, oh, they're crap. They're strength 3, toughness 3, 1 wound, 1 attack. They're dog shit. Like, would want to bring them. They're just a Curse of Cult got brought out and these guys got shot on pretty much. But in 8th edition, they were really good because you could just bring them and then put most of your points into your HQ units, which is what you would do with Chaos. You can The 5 points a model, they're just I usually have quite a lot of success with them, but at tournaments I wouldn't bring them. I just don't think they're good enough. I'll be honest, they're crap. They're designed to die. You don't care if you bring them, and then you just don't care if they die. But if you pay an extra point or extra few points, you can bring Torments instead, which are toughness 4 and a 6-up feel no pain. It's basically Poxwalkers, but faster. And they have Torments in the squad. It's just, the Cultists is just not good. And it sucks because I fucking love Cultists. I think they're so cool. I just love the idea of just these humans that are just pissed off with the Imperium, that just hate everything. But in terms of, they're not entirely useless, but I'm just gonna put them. You can use Tide of Traitors on them. I guess that's why I'm probably putting him there. But if you bring in big blobs of cultists, you're going to get shredded. Bolters are going to shred these guys even if they're in cover. It doesn't matter. So, Tide of Traitors, for those who aren't aware, you can select a cultist mob unit from your army within 6 inches of the battlefield. From your army that is within 6 inches of the battlefield edge, or within 6 inches of the deployment zone. Up to D3 plus 3 destroyed models can be added back to the unit. This model cannot be set up in engagement range of any enemy units unless the enemy units are already within engagement range of the cultist mob. There's no reason to bring them. There's literally no reason. You can just bring accursed cultists, or better yet, bring fucking noise marines. I just think they're just awkward. They're just not particularly that useful at all. Oh yeah, you can use Death Ecstasy on them if you want to spend 2 CP for cultists to fight on death, but I don't know why you'd want to do that. But yeah, cultists are really bad. Next one, Land Raider. 265 points base kit. 10-inch move, can get bracketed. It's got 16 wounds, toughness 9, strength 8, 6 attacks, 2-up save, 9 leadership. I'm just going to be honest, and I'm to speed this process up. And I know a lot of people are going to be like, oh my god, why are you not bringing a Chaos Land Raider? Chaos Land Raiders are in the fucking D tier because they are dog shit. I think they are worse than Forge Fiends because they just don't do anything. Heavy 2, so you bring in a twin heavy bolter, which is heavy 6, strength 5 minus strength 5 minus 1/2 damage. Pretty alright, yeah. Exploding 6s. Yeah, then you bring in twin shot las cannons, so there's 2, so you've got 4 shots, strength 9, minus 3 d6 plus 2, but you're paying 265 points for it. Yeah, it's a transport. It gets bracketed really a lot harder to bracket because it's toughness 9. But it's just, if you bracket it once, it loses half its movement. It goes from 10-inch movement to 5. It's just not good. You can transport models, but again, you're paying 265 for a glorified transport. You don't need to bring it. Emperor's Children are already quick. Plus, Terminators don't need to be brought in a fucking Land Raider, and they don't need to be brought in anything. They can jump strike it or just walk up the board because they're tanky enough to, deal with it. Can't transport any Obliterators either, or any jump pack models, and it can transport Possessed, but it's 2 spaces per model, so there's just no point. The dog shit. Don't bring them. And while we're on the subject, I don't know, the Chaos Lord is next, but I am just going to preemptively do this. All of the Chaos tanks are D tier. Rhino is, again, you don't need transport. It's it's the Emperor's Children. You're moving at like lightning speed anyway. But all of the tanks are just bad. They need a significant rework, and that's more of a game design issue as opposed to a chaos issue. I think tanks are just too easy. There's a very good video on YouTube. I forgot the name of the person who did it, but he goes into an analysis and explains why that the vehicles need a change and that they need some form of rework. And I agree completely. I think because it sucks, because I want to bring tanks. I want to be the guy who brings a tank and blows everything up, because blowing stuff up's fun, and we're playing Emperor's Children, and that's the rule of fun. The rule of thumb is have some fun, as the Emperor's Children would say. But other than that, they're just trash. I'm not even going to waste time ranking them because they're all D tier, and it sucks. But again, that's just unfortunately the way the game works. But yeah. Next up, Chaos Lord. Do you want to bring a unit that is 90 points? I'm just going to run through the stats first, and then I'll go with a joke. So it's 90 points, 6-inch move, 2 up weapon, ballistic skill, strength, toughness 4, 6 wounds, 6 attacks, 10 leadership, 3 up save. As a 4 up invul, let the galaxy burn as well, and or reroll ones. You can pay an extra 20 points to bring the Thunderhammer, and you have to pay an extra 15 points. So if you bring it with a Thunderhammer, you are paying a total of 125 points. Why would I pay 125 points for a model when I can bring either another squad of Noise Marines, or better yet, spend extra and buy a Demon Prince or a Lord Discordant, or better yet, a Dark Apostle, because at least I will actually get something from the Dark Apostle. The Chaos Lord is trash. He's just really bad. He's fun, like the Thunderhammer is just fantastic. Hitting with Thunderhammers and re-rolling, ones. Oh, you don't get to re-roll ones because it's not core, is it? But you hit on 2s, 6 attacks, 3 damage, minus 2 AP, minus 1 most of the time because it's armor consent. He's just not good. He's not eternally bad because he's 4 up invul, reroll ones. Reroll ones is vastly overrated, but I think he's fun. If you want to have some fun, bring a Chaos Lord with a Thunderhammer and bonk people, but other than that, it's just not good. I mean, yeah, you can bring other melee weapons, like, the Power Fist, I guess. But why would you want to do that when you can just bring a Thunderhammer and just do more damage? You get more AP with a Power Fist, but you get 2 damage each, which is not 3 damage. 3 damage is way better. I think he's probably better than the Hellbrute. But he's just... in fact, why am I even ranking the Hellbrute this high? The Hellbrute's terrible. There's a lot of D tiers as well, Jesus Christ. Having Honor the Prince on the Chaos Lord. I mean, the Chaos Lord will get into combat if he wants to, but again, you're gain up points for Assassinate on a toughness 4, 6 wound model with a 4 up invul, which is just not good. Although he's fun, which is great. Next up, Raptors. Everyone sucks these off like they're the best thing ever, and I partially agree. I think they're alright, but I wouldn't say they're the best thing ever. Yep, so 12-inch move, 3 up weapon, ballistic, strength 4, toughness 4, 2 wounds, 3 attacks, 3 up save and 8 leadership. So pretty solid stat line. Regular Space Marine one with a bit more, a lot more movement actually, and an extra attack because Chaos Space Marines get it. 21 points a model, but you will be paying 15 for the unit extra because obviously, a minimum amount of them will cost 21 times 5, 120 points for a unit of 5, which is relatively cheap. But again, why would I buy that when I can bring a Blast Master on a Noise Marine? That's just the way it is. You'll find a lot of the problems with the Emperor's Children is, why would I bring that when I can bring Noise Marines? Or why would I bring that when I can bring a Demon Prince or Possessed? You'll find a lot of stuff is just outshone by these units because they are so good. And like I said, if you're playing Emperor's Children, you're playing Noise Marines. Simple. You can bring a Power Fist on them, which is fun because you're hitting on 3s. Power Sword on them, again, no, don't bring a Power Sword. Power Swords are really bad. They can Warp Strike, -1 leadership. These are way better in Black Legion. But I think Warp Talons are just straight up better. I think Warp Talons, they're just infinitely more fun to use. They have access to Demon King powers because of the Master of Possession. This is going to be controversial. I have played them, but I think every time I play them, I'm thinking, why the fuck didn't I just bring Warp Talons? Because, yeah, 12-inch movement's really good. They're super strong for that. Like, 12-inch movement's fantastic. And they've got jump pack. And I think they have a fly keyword as well. Yeah, they do. But this shooting's just bad. Like, yeah, you're shooting with what? Pistols? Or better yet, you can pay 10 points for a melter gun. Or a flamer. It's just the utility that they've got is super good, but it's just see, I'm tempted to put them in simply for the utility because 12-inch movement is fantastic, and even if you tap it in them, I'm severely underselling them. Actually, I think they're actually pretty good. I'd say A tier. I don't think they're as good as people make them out to be. I think if you're bringing in Black Legion with Hark and World Claimer, I think they are phenomenally good, and they're an S tier pick because rerolling wounds on Raptors is nasty. But I think for Emperor's Children, I don't know. I think because you've got your shooting covered with Noise Marines, your speed's covered with Lord Discordant, your hard hitting. Your Raptors are pretty good at tarp hitting, but your Warp Talons are better at tarp hitting. But your Raptors can shoot, and your Warp Talons can shoot. I think they're better than Chosen. Yeah, I think they're better than Chosen. I think they're a solid unit. You can make use of them, but again, I personally prefer Warp Talons. That's just me. But Raptors are still really good. I think they're just under Warp Talons, but I think the other two, other four things in front of them are more useful. Usually. In fact, no, maybe. Hang on. Because you can't use Honor the Prince, these guys can. No, I think the Dark Apostle's better. Because the prayers. I think the prayers are just super useful. Raptors are really good, though. I think Lucius loses out on just under because obviously the Raptors do have better movement than Lucius, but Lucius is far killer in combat. This is all high A tier, by the way. There's no low A tier in this. They're all exceptionally good. Like the difference between the Leviathan here, the Havocs here and the Helldrake here is pretty significant. Whereas with this, it's just they are all equal, but they just have these little tiny differences that make them slightly different. I could be overranking Raptors because they're basically just Warp Talons with less attacks and guns. But oh well. Sorcerer Terminator Lord is next. 125 points. 5-inch move, 3 weapon skill, ballistic skill, strength toughness 4, 6 wounds, 5 attacks, 9 leadership. It's very pricey. He knows 2 psychic powers. He can bring a familiar, which means that he can re-roll a failed psychic test for 5 points if you bring that with him, which is all right. But again, you're paying a lot of money for him anyway. He's 125 points, 130 points for an HQ unit. Again, why would I do that when I can bring a Demon Prince who's a Psyker? Why would I do that when I can bring Master of Possessions? Why would I do that when I can just bring a regular Sorcerer? It's just a pricey Sorcerer. Some people say he's really good. Some people said you could use Honor the Prince on him, but you can't because he's a character. He's just weird. He has a 5-up invul, I guess, and he can deep strike, and he knows 2 powers, and he's all right in combat because he's got the force stave and all that other shit if you want to bring it. But it's D3 damage, and he's got combi weapon. I don't see any use for him. I don't think he's entirely useless, but I just think he's just too pricey. It costs too much for 2 psychic powers. You might as well spring a sorcerer. Speaking of which, Next one is a sorcerer. You have to bring in for the Marcus Lanesh, which brings him to 110 points. 6-inch movement, 3 up weapon ballistic, strength 4, toughness 4, 5 wounds, 5 attacks, 9 leadership, 3 up save. 2 psychic powers, dark hereticus. Guy's bread and butter. He's not good in combat. You don't bring him for combat, though. You bring him for buffs. And again, buffs from psychic powers can be used in the Malefic Discipline. I know this usually doesn't affect other units. So, for example, you can't hit Noise Marines with it, I don't think, with most of them points. But I think you can also bring Delightful Agonies on him. But again, you can bring it on a Demon Prince, but the Demon Prince can move way faster and fight. In addition, you can also bring Prescience, which is very good. That means that you get +1 to hit on a friendly Legion unit, which can be literally anything that I've mentioned that's in the Legion. Diabolic Strength's really good because it means that you can hit an infantry model such as the Chosen or Lucius or himself if you need to. You can hit him with a Cursed Cultist as well. Noise Marines, +2 strength, +2 attacks. Death Hex is good, but it's high warp charge. I think the Sorcerer, I brought him in my last game as well. I think he's, again, warp time's really good, but you can't charge after you use it, which is the big problem, because the Slaneshi thing is just bring Blissful Devotion on the Dark Apostle, slap it on a model, run it up board, advance 6, and then just run in and punch something. I think he's banging them. I think he's better than Leviathan. I think the Sorcerer's just under 80. I think he is usable. He is 110 points, and you are paying him for. You're essentially getting mortal wounds off him, but I'm probably. It's awkward because his cost. You've got to think in comparison to other units, you're paying an extra 70 points for a Demon Prince. That's way better, moves faster, has 1 less power. Leviathan just shoots the shit out of anything. Bikers are pretty meh. Legionnaires. I'm sorry, I'm going to have to bring them down again. I think Legionnaires existing is just a problem because there's no point in bringing them under any circumstance when Noise Marines exist. Leviathan Dreadnought. Bikers are good for a distraction. You might as well use fucking Raptors. But again, running in and fighting first in the fight phase is always really good. Leviathan Dreadnought. I think I'm very overestimating the Leviathan at 210 points. But the shooting from it is nasty if you can get some good shots off. And again, that's personal experience. So I'll just leave that. I'm not going to touch that. Some people will heavily disagree and think Leviathans are trash because you're paying 200 plus points plus a CP to use them. I think actually Leviathan's C tier because I know we're supposed to be talking about Chaos Spawn, but Leviathans are just too pricey to cost too much. Either lower the cost or don't bother. Right, I'm going to speed this up because I want to get under the 3-hour mark. Chaos Spawn, they're way better than the Death Guard variants, let's put it that way. They're a fast attack, which is good. 25 points for a model. You can bring just the one model. 7-inch move, 4 weapon skill, 5 strength, 5 toughness, 4 wounds, 2d3 attacks, 8 leadership, and 5 save. Hideous mutations, so strength user, strength 5 -2, 2 damage. -1 leadership within 6 inches. You get choice to choose. You get to roll a d3 at the start of the fight phase every time it's selected to fight. So you can, if you get a 1 or a 2, it's hideous mutations or AP -4, which is pretty good. Grasping pseudopods, which gives him an extra d3 attacks, which in my opinion is a bit. It can be useful. It depends what you're fighting. Toxic hemorrhage is probably the best one because it means you can re-roll wounds on his attacks. So the way it works is these guys, in my opinion, are S tier. I think they're just really good. You can bring. I remember I brought 3 a few games ago. I brought 3 individual ones, and I dotted them everywhere, and no one could deep strike. And it's 25 points a model. And the best thing is, each time an enemy shoots or fights after it's finished making its attacks, if any model in the unit has lost any wounds as a result and was not destroyed, it regens all its wounds. Yeah, you can shred through them quite easily if you've got decent. But the thing is that's toughness 5, 4 wounds, 5 up save. Yeah, with AP is going to shred it, but who cares? It's toughness 5, 4 wounds. You're paying 25 points for a model. So what? Shoot it. You're not shooting my other stuff. Do it. And if they don't kill it in the shooting phase, so let's say, for example, they shoot and they take 3 wounds off it, oops, it goes back to 4 wounds. Even if they run into it and they hit it, oops, it goes back to 4 wounds. So instead of it being on 1 wound, it's on full. So they're going to run into a chaos spawn with 4 wounds if they do charge it. And if they're charging a chaos spawn, that's usually not a good thing, because then that means something can either heroically intervene from the Emperor's Children, or it kills the unit, a single chaos spawn, and it's exposed a unit that your opponent has left out in the open, so you can shoot the shit out of it. Which is the chaos spawn are fantastic. I recommend bringing them in at least 1 or 2 in every list. But they're just usually some people just bring 1 and just put it on an objective and just leave it to stop. It's very good for screening for deep strikes. They're reasonably good in combat. They're very swingy. I get it because it's chaos spawn, but yeah, they're S tier. I think they're really good. Chaos Terminator Lord, on the other hand, 125 points, movement 5, 2 up weapon ballistic skill, 4 strength toughness, 7 wounds, 6 attacks, 2 up save. Combi weapons, as a chain fist that is hitting on 2s, minus 4 AP. Problem is, unless it's hitting a vehicle, it's D3 damage. If it is hitting a vehicle, it's 3 damage, which is pretty good, but it's a Terminator. It's really fucking terrible. It's just a crappier version of a Chaos Lord. At least the Terminator Lord Sorcerer has psychic powers. This guy just has a 4-up invul and reroll 1s. He can warp strike. Some people swear by this guy, thinking he's really good in combat, and he probably is. I might be underselling him, but it says you can bring an Exalted Power Axe on him, which is strength +2, -2 damage. You can also replace his melee weapon with another melee weapon from the melee list. So Power Fist you can bring, hitting him on 2s. He's good in melee. He's not bad at all, but he's just not good enough. You're paying 130 points, I think it was, for a decent combi weapon. So let's say you're taking a combi melter because you're going to be in close quarters, and you're taking down big vehicles or whatever. You want to hit hard. You bring 115 plus 15, 130 points for 1 model when you can pay extra to get other stuff. So it's just not good enough. I just think he's worse than the Sorcerer Lord, because at least the Sorcerer Lord you get 2 psychic powers, and the Chaos Lord on its own, despite being actually, I think Terminator Lord's better than the Chaos Lord. But the Chaos Lord is better than the regular Terminator Lord. The Sorcerer is better because of the psychic powers. And the regular Sorcerer is better than the Terminator Lord because the Sorcerer is cheaper. And you bring him for the buffs. You don't bring him for fighting. If you're bringing a buffing character, you bring him for literally to beat the shit out of stuff if you want to bring a combat unit. Or just better yet, bring a Demon Prince. Because they're really good. They're not as good as people think, though. They are exceptional, though. That's not saying anything to detract them. Terminators, regular Chaos Terminators. Unit of, each one costs 33 points, 5-inch move, 3 up weapon ballistic, strength 4, toughness 4, 3 wounds, 3 attacks, leadership 9, 2 up save. Combi weapons again. You can bring flamers, heavy flamers on them. Auto cannons if you want. Chain fist for extra 5 points. Power fist for extra 5 points. You can have your accursed weapons, which is the base kit, because initially it used to be you could bring a variety with lightning claws and just shred everybody, which got removed. So they made it base kit. Every Terminator now has accursed weapons. So it's +1 strength, -3, 1 damage, but they get an extra attack. So it's basically a chain sword on crack, which is really good. A squad of 5 of these guys is 33 times, let me just get my calculator out, 33 times 5. 165 points for a squad of 5, plus the mark, which is 180. 5 pinball, armor of contempt, warp striking, and they get extra flamer shots and exploding hits. I think Terminators on Empress Children, if you bring them, because initially it was the Black Rune of Damnation that you'd bring them on in Iron Warriors or something with Nurgle, and you just put them in the center of their board and they just never die. You could still hit really fucking hard though with these guys. And I would probably say there's a few gimmicky strategies you can do with them. I mean, when you fight in the Terminators, anything that can use Death Ecstasy is just going to be really good. You can also use combat elixirs on them for 2 CP, which means that when you're in a core unit or a character unit from your army selected to fight until the end of the phase, add 1 to the strength characteristic of the models in that unit and improve the weapons characteristic by 1. So you get +1 strength, +1 weapon skill, which means they're hitting on 2s, usually strength 6. You can bring Black Rune of Damnation on them. Again, -1 to wound on a big blob of Terminators is really good. Other models such as the champion can bring the Blade of the Relentless, which is a power sword, demon blade, or a cursed weapon. It's strength +1, -4 AP, 2 damage, and each time it fights, bearer can make an additional attack, and each time this weapon is made, an unmodified hit roll of 6 gives 2 mortal wounds, and the attack sequence ends. So it's very similar. It's basically the Dismemberment Axe, but better, and it's a relic weapon. If you want to really give it that, I guess. But Terminators, I think, are, if you bring a blob of them and you put them in an objective, they're not going to get moved. And if they charge them, then the Slanesh thing is just to kick the shit out of them in the next turn. They're not going to kill the Terminators, especially Black Rune of Damnation. I think they are, because of the 3 wounds, but the Chosen, it's basically, these guys are equal in my opinion. I think in fact no, Terminators edge them out just a bit because they're a lot more durable. They've got 5 pinball, and a 2 up save, whereas the Chosen are basically just Space Marines with an extra wound, an extra attack, but their abilities are better, and you can slap relics on them, and they're cheaper. I think Chosen Terminators are 33 points, Chosen are 25. Yeah, Chosen are better. Only just though. If you bring Terminators, no one's going to really care, because it's like you brought Terminators or Chosen, you brought a very good character. Last but not least, Cypher. This guy is a fucking gimmick. He's a gimmicky boy. He's just so weird. He's just really bad. He's 90 points. He doesn't take the Marcus Slanesh. You can't bring it on him. He's an agent of chaos, so you don't lose your leading trait. 2 up weapon skill, 2 up ballistic, 4 strength, 4 toughness, 6 wounds, 6 attacks, 9 leadership, 3 up save. This guy is ass. His pistol's 6 shots, but it's a bolt pistol with -1 AP, so good luck trying to get anybody killed with that. And he's got a 12-inch pistol. That's a plasma pistol, which is the one he's got as well, his signature plasma pistol. Pistol 3, strength 8, -3, 2 damage. That's alright. But again, it's a plasma pistol. It's 12-inch range. What the fuck are you doing? He has a 4-up invul. Each time he makes a hit, he's basically got the illusory supplication prayer on him 24/7, so he can't get hit on a 3 or a 4. 1 to 3, 1, 2, and 3 always fail, but they can re-roll. Unmodified hit rolls of 1 and 3 always fail, irrespective of the weapon or the model making the attacks. It can escape, so once per battle at the end of the shooting phase or fight phase, he can remove the model from play and then place it into strategic reserves, which he can then redo back in. He's able to shoot and advance and fall back if he shoots as well. It's just, each time your opponent uses any rules that would allow him to generate command points or have command points refunded, roll 1d6. On a 4-up, your opponent does not gain those command points and have the command points refunded. He's 90 points for just a gimmick. Trash. It's not. No, he's not good. I'm sick to death of people mentioning this guy. He's really annoying. I know that's ended as such a dour note, but yeah, he's really bad. He's very, very bad. He's 90 points for a gimmicky HQ. That doesn't do anything. At least with a Baden, at least when you put the points into a Baden, you actually get, a lot of kickback. Oh, by the way, if you put him as your warlord, he gets a 5 feel no pain. Wow. But yeah, with that said, this is my tier list. Just to reiterate, it's going to be the Lord Discordant, Noise Marines, Master of Possessions, Warp Talons, Master of Executions, and Chaos Spawn S tier. A tier, these are mostly equal. Demon Prince, Possessed, Dark Apostle, Warp Talons, Raptors, Lucius the Eternal, Chosen, Terminators, Accursed Cultist, Obliterators. Venom Crawler. B tier is Sorcerer, Bikers. C tier is the Ranged Leviathan, the Legionnaires, Havocs, Sorcerer Terminator Lord, Chaos Lord, Terminator Chaos Lord, Helldrake. D tier is Cultist, Cypher, Mauler Fiend, Hellbrute, Leviathan Dreadnought, Melee Loadout, your Mauler Fiends, Forge Fiends, all of the Chaos Tanks, your Land Raiders, Predators, Destructors, your Rhino, Dark Commune, Warpsmith, Defiler, and Fabulous Bill. Yeah, other than that, please let me know if any of you disagree with any of my choices, what you do differently, if I've oversold something or if I've undersold it, what you would agree with, what you disagree with, anything in particular that you believe is your go-to unit that I've, graciously dropped a big L on. I'd be happy to discuss certain things with regards to my placements. If you've had more success with certain units, then I encourage you to mention them in the comment section. I think a lot of healthy discourse can be helped because I want to get better as a player. So obviously, any kind of opinions that are within good faith and allow some form of progression to be made, at least from both our perspectives, can improve our skill levels at the game. So yeah, if you've got any thing that you think I've done well, please let me know. I do apologise that this video has been nearly 3 hours long. However, I am passionate about the Emperor's Children, obviously, which is good because it's lore accurate. Other than that, I would definitely like to say that thank you for watching if you've always watched this long. And in addition, I hope whatever it is that you're doing, you have a good day and you enjoy yourselves. And always remember that the Emperor's Children will always help you out when you're feeling sad. Or anything, really, because sensation's a motherfucker. But yeah, and again, I do reiterate, thank you for watching, and I hope you enjoy the rest of your day. You take care. Bye-bye.